What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another match review stream. As Spurs have lost by 3-2 yesterday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the hands of Arsenal. And I think I can speak for all of us to say it was an extremely frustrating day at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday, where I, for one, thought we put in a good display. I did think we put in a good display. I did think we were the better team. And I think you're looking at a lot of fans with very angry reactions yesterday, especially going 3-0 down at half-time. But, I mean, when I look at it and when I look at the first half display, we were 3-0 down at half-time. I wasn't there at half-time, like, angry with the display that we did make. I was just mainly angry at different aspects, defending set pieces, calls from the referee and stuff like that. I wasn't really angry with maybe the patterns of play Spurs were creating and how we were dominating the game in possession.
Yeah, it was a very weird first half because we played quite well. We were doing a lot of good things. We were winning the ball high up in a lot of dangerous situations. We were causing Arsenal quite a few issues in terms of their build-up play. Arsenal barely had the ball in our half.
71% possession in that first half.
Yeah, and that going into that game, I told you Spurs would have had 71% possession. You would have taken that. Yes, I know Arsenal have this different way of playing, especially we saw against Man City, very pragmatic, making sure they're not giving away any easy chances, knowing that they can, on the counter-attack, give teams problems. But we didn't even give them that many counter-attacks. They only had one counter-attack that whole half. They did score from it, but that was from a follow-up from when we should have had a penalty. And the biggest disappointment was those set pieces. Now, to be fair, we knew that was going to be a problem. We knew set pieces was going to be an issue going into this game. So that is understandably a massive frustration by a lot of fans who say, you should have planned for this. You should have known that there were going to be a big problem with set pieces. You should have come up with a way of combating that, which wasn't doing the same thing we've been doing for the past few weeks. The biggest annoyance is you go back to the last game we had against Newcastle. Every set piece they had a chance, pretty much. We looked completely weak from those set pieces. They scored one, and they could have scored a lot more from those set pieces. And yet we came into this game seemingly no change in approach. Seemingly we're going to defend the set pieces exactly the same way. And the most annoying thing is they only had 2 set pieces, and they scored from both of them. And that is understandably a massive frustration by a lot of fans. So when you look at that narrative, obviously I'm not going to sit here and say that was acceptable, because it's completely unacceptable how we defended those set pieces. We were so weak from them, and we should have known what was coming, and it seemed as though we were caught flat-footed by the most obvious threat, essentially. But I was proud of how we approached the game on the ball. I was actually pretty happy with how we were containing Arsenal for large parts, how we were making sure they weren't at that much of a threat. And I think in open play, we were generally very, very good, and we were causing them problems in terms of catching them in our pressing. The only shame is we didn't, create the amount of openings we should have. We did have a few. Obviously, Romero hit the post, and he had a header wide. And obviously, Son went through on goal with a great ball from Porro, which went over the bar. He should have done better with that one. So there was some chances, but there wasn't like a flurry of clear-cut chances, I would say.
No, it wasn't. And you can't expect a flurry of clear-cut chances when you're playing against the best defensive team in the league, especially the way that they did set up on the day. They set up to frustrate us. That's what they did. They set up in a very low block. They relied on set pieces and counter-attacks yesterday. So you got to say that their game plan worked to perfection, because that's what they got. They got set pieces, they got counter-attacks. That's the way they scored. Apart from that, I don't really feel that they threatened us throughout the whole game. Even the set pieces that they did have in the second half, I felt that we did deal with them well. But the damage was done already. The damage was done in that first half. And you got to look at 15 minutes in, Spurs have all the play. Spurs are asking the questions. Maybe not too many questions, but I thought we were the ones in the ascendancy. 15 minutes goes, a corner comes in, their first corner of the game. Højbjerg puts it into the back of our own net. Very frustrating. Whether Højbjerg should be starting or not, that's another question. But I did feel like after that goal that we did concede, again, we responded well. We started to get on the ball. I think Romero had that chance very shortly after we go 1-0 down. I think Sonny had a chance in that period as well, I believe, or were we 2-0 down at that point?
I think we were 3-0 down at that point.
Either way, I did think we responded very well. And even with that Romero chance that hits the post, I felt that he was fouled as well in that moment, getting pushed at the back post. So there's another shout for a penalty there. And Michael Oliver, what was Michael Oliver on yesterday? I felt like he may as well had a red shirt on yesterday, seriously. Like, he didn't want to give Spurs anything throughout the whole 90 minutes. And even the penalty that was given, he didn't want to give that. And that was the most stonewall penalty I've ever seen in that second half. Declan Rice takes a lump out of Kulusevski, I think it was. Ben Davis, sorry. And I mean, he's 2 yards away from that. Like, how the hell is he not calling that? And it has to go to VAR. He has to go to the screen and the monitor, and then he decides to point to the spot. But I mean, like, how can it even come to that? He's 2 yards away from it and he kicks a lump out of him. It's the most stonewall penalty I've ever seen. And if he doesn't give that straight away, like, it makes sense that he's not giving the other ones. I mean, how many penalty shouts did we have throughout the game? And it wasn't just that. The way they were toying with Vicario from the set piece as well. Ben White was trying to take off his glove and all this kind of stuff. I do feel like they did a bit of a number on Vicario, and I'm sorry, Vicario's got to be stronger in these kind of situations. He's got to be stamping his authority and owning that 6-yard box, and he didn't do that yesterday, Vicario. And
big difference to Raya.
Big difference to Raya, 100%.
Raya did.
Yeah, Raya was coming and claiming everything, but Vicario was weak. He was weak from the set pieces, and I think it is a kind of narrative that you're seeing form now throughout these aspects that we are the way we defend our set pieces. The goalkeeper has got to be doing a lot stronger. You can't. There was a clip of Ben White and Vicario with that moment I was talking about, that he was trying to take off his glove. I mean, like, Vicario just didn't know really what to do in that situation, and Ben White showed the dirty side of the game, which you probably need to do to go and win these kind of games.
100%. And I think if Vicario's gonna, if they're gonna basically play games with Vicario and they're going to back into him and things like that, if the ref's not going to call it, the ref's not going to give it a foul, and VAR's not going to get involved, then Vicario has to take matters into his own hands. He can't rely on anyone else but himself to make sure those situations don't come about. So if they're going to shove him, he has to shove them back. He has to absolutely get ahead of them. He has to be a lot stronger. He has to make sure he's got the space to come and claim it. Now, the problem is the way we combated that was we had in recent weeks anyways, we had a player protecting Vicario, which we didn't have yesterday. But the problem with that is that a player protecting Vicario seemed to take away from defending the set pieces, and it ended up a free man was usually there, and it ended up costing us a lot of the time. So it's difficult to know what the solution is. I think Vicario just himself, I think he is the solution. I don't think we should need a defender protecting him. I think he shouldn't have to protect himself. He just has to be stronger. He has to give as good as he gets. And I feel like at the moment he's allowing himself to be manipulated in these situations, so that he's not able to come for crosses, whereas he should just be shoving them. He should be doing anything he can to create that space. And if the referee's not going to call them shoving the keeper, they shouldn't be calling Vicario doing it back to them. What I would also say is, I thought Van der Ven was a good shout for him being fouled for that third goal. Havertz has 2 arms in his back. Yeah. You know what? All these situations, if I probably even wouldn't be talking about them if we didn't see on Saturday night what happened at Chelsea, Villa Chelsea, because there was a push from Badiashile, which I thought, for me, probably was a foul. Yeah, I agree with that, but should VAR be getting involved with those ones? Was it a clear and obvious error? Was it just like an aggressive barge, and maybe if the referee saw it and played on, you give the goal? The fact that VAR got involved in that and said, no, actually we're going to give the foul for that set a precedent for me. That set a precedent for saying, okay, any shove in the box where it's even though it's shoulder to shoulder, wherever, it says shove in the box where there's no clear intention to get the ball and it shoves the player away, you're going to give the foul for that. That's the precedent they set. And yet yesterday, we see Havertz shoving Van der Ven in the back, no foul. We see Partey shoving Romero when he's about to score, no foul. All these situations, which could have easily been very similar to what happened with Badiashile then literally the day before, and yet VAR's not getting involved in those ones, and they did get involved in the Chelsea one. That is a massive frustration for me. Yeah,
I completely agree. I mean, there's not much more to say on that. It seems to happen to Tottenham time and time again, though, these kind of things. And I want to talk about the goal that was disallowed from Mickey Van der Ven. I mean, yes, it was a minuscule offside. You got to put your hands up to that. I mean, whether you think these ones should be should be given offside when the rule change comes in, or if the rule change ever comes in, then that will probably be deemed onside. But we saw Romero tweeted straight after the game saying, well, West Ham scored a goal exactly like that against us when it comes off their man, our man, and I think it was Ward-Prowse went through on goal and it gets given a goal. I don't know. Was the rule changed? Was the rule changed or something? Like if it goes off their own man and it's not intentional, then it's not offside anymore.
No, there's a difference between those two goals because Bone was onside when the shot was taken. Van de Ven wasn't, so that's the difference essentially. But
like, when was the rule changed that when it hits off an opposition defender and the player's offside, it's offside? Because it used to be that if it goes off an opposition defender, no matter what, then it's fine.
No, that's never been the rule. The rule's always been it has to be an intentional move from the defender. So a shot that deflects off a defender and falls into the path of a player who's offside, that's always been offside. Then the rule never changed. But if a player obviously has control of the ball and then passes it back or whatever, or has a bad back pass to a player who's offside, that's obviously a goal because the player on the ball had control of the ball. So the rule's always been that the player has to have made a deliberate movement. Now that's caused a lot of controversy. I remember, I think it was maybe in the Nations League last year or a couple of years ago. A ball was played through to Mbappe, and there was a defender who did a sliding challenge to try and block the pass, right? And he did a sliding challenge. He got a touch on it, but it wasn't a good enough touch to get it away from Mbappe, who scored. He was in an offside position, but they decided to give it because they felt that touch by the defender was an intentional enough touch for it to count as a goal. Now, yesterday, Tomiyasu very clearly gets his leg out and to block the shot. But the problem is, they say, I guess the claim is that it's he doesn't have control of the ball. He didn't have control of the ball when he made that touch, so it doesn't go towards the offside. So unfortunately, it's just one of those things. That is the rule. I think they applied it correctly. I think it's very hard to take when the ball goes off two Arsenal defenders,
you know what I mean?
And falls to Mickey van de Ven and scores. It's a very hard one to take. But the law says if neither defender had control of the ball, then it doesn't the play won't reset, so it goes back to the shot. Whether you agree with that it's by the by, but it's unfortunate that is the rule.
I think in that situation though, it's just a terrible rule. Like how could it play ping pong over two Arsenal players, fall to Mickey van de Ven, who's like a slither offside? You know what I mean? It's just a really hard one to take.
It is a very hard one. And
really.
Also, yeah. And also, I've always had this disagreement, but the way they draw offside lines, all that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of the time I feel like they're just guessing. They're guessing where the last point is, and they're making all these millimeter judgments on technology which isn't fit for purpose, in my opinion. You look at the footage that they're judging it on. It's very grainy. It's very pixelated. It's very hard to tell where the last point of the defender is and where they should be drawing the line. I've had this complaint ever since they brought in VAR, ever since they started doing offsides this way. I'm not just complaining about it because Spurs on the end of it. I don't like the way they do it, but it's the same for everyone, so we have to just take it on the chin. But it's been very, very frustrating that goal got disallowed.
It's the same for everyone, but they don't exactly keep the consistency for everyone on the decisions, though, do they? That's the most frustrating thing about it.
Offsides they do, but I agree, the subjective ones, they don't.
It's ridiculous, a lot of them. But look, in terms of the lineup that Ange chose yesterday, he did throw in a few surprises, didn't he? Playing Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg in the number 6, no Sarr, Bentancur played, no Bissouma, no Johnson. Kulusevski started on the right, Werner started on the left, albeit Werner went off fairly early because of an injury, and Brennan Johnson came on. I thought it was probably the wrong decision to start Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg in the game yesterday. Obviously, I'm not going to he scores the own goal, but I'm not saying that's the reason why it was the wrong decision. I just felt like we did look a little bit better when Bissouma came on and Pape Matar Sarr. And I thought Pape actually looked really good when he came on. He kept us high up the pitch. He kept recycling the ball. He put pressure on those Arsenal midfielders and defenders and kept winning the ball and being able to sustain that pressure that we had in the last 20 minutes. So what was your thoughts on maybe starting Højbjerg?
I wasn't against it pre-game because obviously Basuma's not been in great form. Højbjerg is obviously a bit more combative. Maybe he can give us a bit more solidity when it comes to making sure that we're containing Arsenal a bit better. And I thought maybe he did that. What I would say is on the ball, I thought he wasn't great. I thought on times he was put under pressure. That was really, I thought he gave the ball away a few times in poor areas, and that was really disappointing. I think he showed why, to be honest, he can't be our number 6 as going forward long term. We know that he's probably going to leave in the summer, but I think yesterday was a good indication of that. I thought Basum was decent when he came on. I thought Sarr was really good when he came on. Actually, I really liked Sarr, but I understand why he changed it. He said before the game that he put Højbjerg in because he's been playing really, really well in training recently. So if that's the case, I'm not going to hold that against him. If that's the judgment he made. However, I think the stats say Højbjerg started, I think, 9 games this season, and I think we've lost like 8 of them or something to that effect. So he's clearly, I don't think he's the answer in that position. But Basuma hasn't been in great form, so I understand the need to change it up. And as well, if Højbjerg is showing good stuff in training, I'm happy for Ange to make that decision for it to be a meritocracy. Bentancur, on the other hand, had a bit of a disappointing day again. Still not up to his
He started
best.
well, though, didn't he?
He did.
He started well in the first 10, 15 minutes, and I was like, all right, Bentancur. But it's like very similar to the Bentancur performances that we've seen over the last, few weeks. Well, more than few weeks, maybe month, where he starts well. You're seeing these like little silky moves in there from Bentancur, and then he just kind of diminishes out the game.
Yeah, I felt like, again, with Bentancur, he was quite good, like, getting stuck in Arsenal's faces in their half and pressing. But once it went to him trying to protect the back line in our own half and doing that kind of dirty work, he was struggling to get back in position. I feel like that's been the case for him for the last few weeks. He's actually quite good when he's in the opposition's half, but when he's on our own half, he has tended to struggle quite a bit. And I'm not sure why that is, but I think that has been a pattern with Bentancur, and obviously was taken off at half-time for Sarr, who I thought had a really good second half. So maybe it was a mistake. Maybe, I don't know how he is in training. Obviously, Bentancur was a more senior player to Sarr, so maybe Ange feels like having that kind of experience in the lineup would have done us good, but unfortunately it didn't work. And also, one thing I wanted to pick up from Højbjerg as well, on the own goal he scored, I think it's easy to point at that own goal and say, oh, it's unlucky, it's just an own goal, it can happen to anyone. But I watched it back. I think he makes a really crucial mistake from that own goal, because he's actually, the reason why he's stretching is because he's not goal side to Tomiyasu. The corner comes in and he's on the wrong side to Tomiyasu, and Tomiyasu's about to head it in, so he's stretching back to get the ball, to try and head the ball back away, because he's made a mistake not being goal side. If he doesn't touch it, Tomiyasu heads it in. So he's forced to stretch back and touch it, and ends up heading it back into his own goal. So I think Højbjerg actually made a big mistake from that corner. I don't think it's just a simple, like, some own goals you say, it's an own goal, it's not much you can do about it. But I don't think that was the case with Højbjerg's one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, to be fair. And the goal that we did concede from the counter-attack, I mean, it was always going to be a mismatch, Saka coming up against Ben Davies in those one-on-ones. But Ben Davies, with all the know-how and all the experience that he does have, he can't be letting Saka come on the inside like that. He needs to be showing him on the outside. And I don't understand, in such a big game, yes, decisions didn't go against us. We should have had a penalty on the other side with Kulusevski. But once we are in that situation, Ben Davies has got to do everything that he possibly can to keep him on the outside, and he doesn't do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the reality is Saka's a very good winger in that position, one-on-one. That's why a lot of teams double up on him, because if you allow him one-on-one against your fullback, he's got the pace and he's got the quick change in direction to go whatever direction he wants to, essentially, especially against a defender like Ben Davies. No disrespect, who's a good defender, but he's not the quickest, he's not the sharpest, and you're going to need that kind of movement to compete with someone like Saka. I knew as soon as Saka got in all that space on the counter, we were in trouble. He was going to get the shot off, and it was about whether Vicario could save it or whether he was going to miss. I knew he was going to be able to cut inside, because Davies wasn't going to be able to stop him, because he's not good enough defender to do that. Yes, he could show him down the line, but Saka's a good enough a player to go both ways, to be honest. And I think Davies could have done a bit more. That's not to say if Saka goes down the line, he could score the goal that way as well. I've seen him score goals with his right foot. Obviously, there's less chance, but we can never leave Davis one-on-one with Saka in that position. That's a team failure rather than a Davis failure, in my opinion. I knew that was always going to happen, but and I also have complaints about what Ange said after the game, the finer details in that moment where we should have had a penalty, yes, but I think Ange's absolutely right. We're too busy claiming for a penalty and remonstrating to the referee. We're not getting ourselves back in position. We're not realising the danger of a counter-attack that's ahead of us. And we pretty much allowed it to happen. We were incensed we didn't get the decision. And it's almost like we allowed the counter-attack to play out because I don't know if we wanted VAR to go back to check it or whatnot, or we were just still angry about the decision. But Arsenal just got on with it. They went on the counter, they scored the goal, and they weren't bothered about what happened the other end. Whereas we seemed to be concentrating on that, and it cost us a goal. Well, I would say it was a penalty. Kulusevski was clipped. I think it is a penalty. I don't think VAR are ever going to go back to change that. I don't think VAR are ever going to get involved in that kind of decision because I don't think it's clear and obvious. I think that's right. I don't think VAR should be going back on that kind of decision. I think the referee made a mistake, though. I do think that should have been a penalty, and I think we were hard done by.
I do think, when you look at the two teams, I do think, like I said before, Spurs were unlucky to lose. We were the ones that had all the possession, asking most of the questions on the day. But I do feel like when you look at these two teams, you can see that one is at the beginning phase of their project and the other one has been in a title race last year. They're in a title race now, which looks as though it's going to go to the death. And you saw maybe a bit of know-how of how to get through these games between the two sides. And Arsenal, they showed that horrible, gritty side of the game where they push things to the limits. Where Spurs, again, it's the kind of thing that we've been saying all the time under Jose Mourinho, under Conte, even under Pochettino to a certain extent at times, that we're just too nice and we don't show that gritty, horrible side of the game. And I think that's a lot what it came down to yesterday.
Yeah, and I think Ange put it perfectly, the finer details, when especially those crucial moments from set pieces where Arsenal were doing everything they can to get those bits of space. They're being very cute, they're using the dark arts, and we're falling for it every time. We're allowing them to do it, we're not pushing back. The only people who seemed to be doing it were people like Kuti, who weren't taking anything. But the other players seemed to allow Arsenal to do what they wanted in the box. And I thought we were quite aggressive actually yesterday. I thought we were doing the pressing really well. We were actually getting in their faces and tackling in really dangerous positions where Arsenal probably wouldn't have expected to lose the ball. But we didn't make the most of that. And I think in open play we were quite aggressive and quite good. But I thought when it came to the finer details, set pieces, and it came for moments for Arsenal to use those dark arts, that's what cost us. We haven't even touched on the second half yet. But the first half, definitely 3-0 down. The game was always going to be gone by then.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about the second half then, because I thought when the players came out, actually Arsenal probably started that second half the better up until maybe we made those changes. And I think Ange probably could have made the changes a bit earlier than he did, which is a bit frustrating because I think as soon as we did make those changes, Spurs were completely dominant and were back on top again. But Arsenal, they started for the first 15, 20 minutes of that second half, probably the better side. And that was the best moment that they had in the game, in my opinion, which is crazy to think about because they were 3-0 up at that time.
Yeah.
But that was the most frustrating thing of the game, right?
Probably the only point where they actually dominated the game.
Yeah, they dominated the game for the first 20 minutes of the second half, but still didn't create too much, did they?
They had that one big chance from Saka, which was quite a big miss, and Vicario does really well.
But that's it.
That was their only real big chance they properly created. From open play, from when they had obviously they got the counter attack which they scored from, but only period where they dominated possession and then carved out a clear-cut opportunity. That was the only one they did throughout the whole game pretty much, and obviously Vicario saved it. And then as you say, we made a double sub. Bassoum and Richarlison came on for Madison and for Højbjerg. And I thought that was the right decision. I put Kulu in the centre, who I thought in the centre as well played quite well. So I agree with that decision. And actually, I think within a minute we had got a goal. Obviously, a lot of luck. Raya with a really bad pass.
It was actually in the same minute that we made the subs.
That was it. It was literally straight away, I remember. So great reaction to the subs being made. Romero playing in his striking position, which he seemed to for a lot of that second half. Playing
I don't know what Ray is doing at that point, though.
Yeah, he just completely scuffed a left-footed pass. I think maybe he just got a bit too what's the word? Not confident, just like he got overconfident essentially. It sounded like they were strutting their stuff at that point. They were 3-0 up. They were like, having it all their own way. And maybe he thought, I can clip this with my left foot. Who cares? Like, I can get it to the Declan Rice, whatever. Completely scuffs it. Falls to Romero, 3-1.
Cool finish as well.
Very
really
cool finish.
Cool
First time into the corner. Nice stuff, Romero. Obviously, yes, they do give us the goal. But with 25 minutes to go, or nearly half an hour to go, you felt like, we got one back, and maybe this game is still there if we can get another one quickly.
Yeah, we didn't get one quick enough, essentially. That was the problem. We after that goal, it was all Spurs. I felt like we penned them into their own kind of third of the pitch. The frustrating thing was Brennan Johnson, right? Brennan Johnson, I thought, had the beating of his fullback every single time. He was being very direct. His dribbling was on point. But those crosses in the box, man, were just so frustrating. Every time, just a floated ball in the box. And Raya they were so easy for him. Yeah. Every single time, they were just so easy for him. And we had a focal point in the box with Richarlison, who I thought came on and provided well for us. He combated well. He gave us a bit of a focal point. But it came to nothing because the crosses in the box were just so bad.
Yeah, we had no quality supply to him, unfortunately. That was what stopped Richarlison really getting involved when it came to trying to score a goal. I thought he did some good stuff when it came to holding the ball up in like general play, like when it came like on the halfway line and stuff, and really helped us get up the pitch. And I thought we were doing some really good stuff from there. We were getting the ball to Johnson, to Son. They were causing their fullbacks trouble, but the delivery just that wasn't there. I thought Gabriel, Saliba dealt with most of it, and obviously a lot of them were floated right into David Raya's hands. And every time you do that, that's like another 30 seconds gone because Raya, goes down the ground, he pats the ball down, and obviously then he launches it forward. So that was a good way of eating up time. So not only it was like a double-edged sword. Not only was it a wasted opportunity to get a good quality cross in, it's also wasting time because Raya is able to gobble those crosses up, and he did that time and time again. And that was a big frustration, especially when at that moment we got the likes of Richarlison in the box, we got the likes of Romero in the box. It wasn't like in the first half where we didn't really have a presence in the box. We had players there to aim at, and we just weren't able to find the quality to do so. So that was a big undoing, I felt, in terms of good play, but we didn't make the most of it.
Yeah, and that was the most frustrating thing, where we were so dominant in that period, and we had the ball literally in their third of the park for predominantly 95% of those situations, and we just couldn't do anything with it. And I think that's a testament to maybe the attacking players that we do have right now, and we need a big improvement of that in the summer if we're gonna forward this team.
Which Ange said. He said that's the thing we need most improvement. He was quite clear about that in the press conference. That's the thing where he wants to improve the most. And it's after that kind of display, it's hard to disagree when you're playing against we're at a stage now where we can play against Arsenal and have the majority of the ball. We can dominate the play. But now the next step is really having that quality in the final third to win the game against them. And that just wasn't there.
We've been at that stage all season, though. We have. Game at the Emirates, we dominated the possession as well in the early part of the season. I'm looking at our 2 games against Arsenal now, which is a good sample size. 1 game at the Emirates, 1 game at Spurs, and I feel like we've dominated over both games, and we've very unluckily come away with just 1 point.
Yeah,
which is the most frustrating thing. We could have taken a win at the Emirates, and we could have taken a win yesterday. That's the most frustrating thing about the whole situation, where yesterday the kind of know-how refereeing decisions have let us down. And what's really gets to me is that you get yourselves up for these games all week. We had 2 weeks to mull over the Newcastle game in anticipation for the North London derby, and we're sitting here the day after the North London derby talking about refereeing decisions and how the referee ruined the game, because I felt like that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. It's very unfortunate. It's one of those where it's hard to take because we played well. We did ourselves proud, I thought, in terms of how we did play against obviously a very good Arsenal team. On another day, it could have easily been a draw or even a win for sure in Tottenham's favour. But part of me feels like, as much as I'm frustrated with the refs and all that, we also only have ourselves to blame with how we defended those set pieces, which we knew were coming. So there's like 2 ways you can look at it. I think from what I'm seeing on social media as well, there's like 2 reactions to this. Is like, one reaction is like, look, you can see what Ange is building. That, like, some people are saying this defeat even more makes you believe in Ange because of how we played against a very good Arsenal team. And even though we lost, you saw how the football we played and how we can control a game against a very good side. And you can see where needs improving and what we need to do in the summer to improve these sides. And if we do that, if we improve these certain aspects, we're going to be a very good team next season. But then on the other side, you've got people saying, well, Ange knew these problems. They're the same we've had the same issues for a number of weeks now. We've shown inconsistent form. Those set pieces, we keep doing the same thing every single game, and that cost us yet again yesterday. And we should have seen that coming. And it's not as if it should have been the surprise to Ange. And is Ange, ever going to learn from his mistakes? Essentially, is the other narrative. So I understand both. I think the second one is quite very, very harsh, but I understand it. I understand what he's saying, and it's quite. I do believe yesterday, looking at how we played and looking at going forward, I do believe that you can very clearly see what needs improving, and if we did that, then I think we could be flying next season.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it, and that's the way I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here obviously very down because we have lost to Arsenal in a game which I didn't think we did. But when you look at the way the game went, yes, are there things that we need to improve on and brush up on? 100%, of course there are. But are there signs that Spurs are going in the right way? I think 100% as well. So it's worlds away to the North London derby that we played at the back end of last season against Arsenal when we lost 2-0. We didn't even have a foothold in that game whatsoever. In these two games against Arsenal this season, I felt like we've dominated both of them and come away with 1 point essentially. So I think you're looking at the progression of Tottenham. It's there for all to see. But there's a lot of things that we need to work on and brush up on, and a lot of things that we need to improve on, and that's kind of expected where you're at the end of the first season under a new manager, new project, losing Harry Kane, all the injuries that we had this season. So there's been a lot of factors that have gone against us this season. And I think it's a credit to Ange and a testament to showing progression still at this point of the season.
Yeah, definitely. So it's gutting that we've let Arsenal win on our ground. That's never going to be nice. It's never going to be a situation that I find the biggest thing yesterday was to try and stop them, and we couldn't do it, and that's so hard to take. But sorry, sometimes you just gotta take the game into account, how it went, what happened on the pitch, and you got to see it for what it was. And we got very unlucky with a lot of decisions. We got very unlucky with a lot of chances that we did miss, and we showed a lot of fight at 3-0 down. I think most teams in the Premier League at 3-0 down, it becomes 4 and 5 against Arsenal, and the fact we clawed it back to 3-2 and if the game goes on for a bit longer, maybe it could have gone to 3-3. I think you got to commend the character, and that's not the last time we showed that, which I'm also proud of, because I know we were 4-0 down against Brighton. That's never acceptable to be in that position. But again, in that game, we rallied late on, got 2 late goals, and we could have actually drawn that game with the chances we had late on. So at least this team shows a willingness to never give up and keep going, even when things seem impossible.
Yeah,
so you got to give them credit for that. I guess.
There's as Ange says, there's a lot of growth in this team yet to come, and I think we need to stamp out the kind of naivety in our play, which Ange was talking about in terms of just relying on that set penalty instead of chasing back and trying to stop Saka on the counterattack and chances like that. But it's not like Arsenal were there and cutting us open at will. You know what I mean? Like they've done to a lot of teams this season. Look at what they did to Chelsea last week, in that second half. Even in the first half, how many chances did they create? We didn't let them do that to us. And that's what they said would happen if we play a high line, if we play these same tactics that we've been deploying all season. Arsenal are going to absolutely ruin us and cut us open at will. That didn't happen, and we were the better team on the day, and it's just unfortunate with the way the things kind of panned out. So
it was just a day of what could have been. If Højbjerg doesn't put it in his own net, if we get the penalty instead of Arsenal going 2-0 up, if Van der Ven's goal counts, all these different things that just didn't go our way. That's a lot of things, by the way, to not go your way. And a lot of them didn't. So it was a day of what could have been. And unfortunately, Arsenal were the ones to come out on top.
Yeah, man. I was sitting there and it just felt, I'm not saying this was the case, but it just felt like they're just trying, the Premier League gods and the referees are just trying to keep Arsenal in this title race, basically. That's what it felt like to me. I'm not saying that was the case, but that's just like, you just feel like all these conspiratorial things coming your way, and the amount of decisions that went against us I mean, it's hard not to feel like that, because at that point before the game, if Man City win and Arsenal don't win, you feel like the title race is over, right? So it just felt like they were just trying to keep Arsenal in this title race by hook or by crook. But this bloody Michael Oliver, so frustrating. But look, I'm still proud in terms of the way we have played this season. I'm proud in the way that we did fight back yesterday, and I don't think we did deserve to lose the game, as I've said on a number of occasions. So that is your match review from the 3-2 loss against Arsenal yesterday. Let's go get through a few super chats before we move on. Welcome to Platinum, by the way, to Tyson Dello. Jaden with the super chat says we should try Kuti in the 6 for these last few games. You know what? Kuti was insane yesterday. What a performance he put in. I said after the game Kulusevski was our best player, but I actually think Kuti Romero was on reflection. Defensively, I thought he was brilliant. The way he was driving us up the pitch, he was probably our biggest threat on goal yesterday as well. Which
Get him
is
in the 6, put him up front.
That's where he was playing for the majority of that second half.
He nearly scored a hat-trick.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. But I actually said on a panel show, let's try Kuti in a 6. I think last week or a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I think he's got the attributes to do it.
Yeah, potentially. I mean,
he's
not
great on the ball.
He's good on the ball. Can he cover like the amount of ground he has to cover to be a 6? You know what I mean? And it's different being good on the ball when you've got time and space. It's another thing when you've got midfielders, tight spaces. Like you've got to make quick decisions. You've got to be turning on the ball. You have to drive with the ball. I don't know. I haven't seen that from Kuti, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he could do it. I don't see a reason why not. I mean, you haven't seen it because he hasn't been in those situations. But if you put him in those situations, you know, sink or swim, and I think he'll swim.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like we need him at centre-back.
No, we do need him at centre-back because, you know, Dragusin comes in and we haven't seen much from Dragusin as of yet. But, you know, you never know. Andrew Dean with the super chat says VAR was atrocious on the Kulu incident. The match review in USA Network showed that Kulu got clipped by Trossard. And, yeah, we did cover that. And, look, it was a penalty. There's no two ways about it. And then Arsenal go up at the other end and score straight away.
Yeah, I disagree that. I think though that situation, the only thing that frustrates me is the consistency. I do think in that situation, VAR should not be getting involved because I don't think it's clear and obvious in my opinion. Although I do think it was a penalty. But then you've seen incidences previously where there's been a clip and VAR does get involved, and that's the frustration, is the consistency. But I think in a perfect world, VAR probably shouldn't be getting involved in that incident.
I think if he went down straight away, VAR probably would have got involved.
Yeah, if he goes down, I think Oliver probably points. Because he stayed on his feet, he was a bit too honest.
Oliver ain't pointing for Spurs, no chance.
Kulusevski.
Video Complete says, I was thinking maybe using Dragusin centre-back next to Van de Ven and Romero DM next to Sarr. Dragusin with his height would help us in corners and free kicks. I mean, I would like to see us try it out at least once.
I mean...
Maybe now. I mean, we've got nothing to play for the rest of the season. So, I mean, why not try a few new things out?
Maybe use a back 3. I don't know. I just don't know about Romero in the middle. I've not seen him when he's got like... loads of opposition players around him and like wriggling out of situations. I don't know if he's capable of that. It could be a disaster.
Well, I mean, our defensive midfielders at the moment as well, it's not exactly like they're performing out of their skin and they deserve to keep their spot.
No, that's also true.
Andrew Din as well saying, thought we lost my man in the match. What?
Though we lost.
My man in the match is Romero. He was almost the only Spurs player who took responsibility and played with pride for the Spurs shirt. And I agree with that. I thought Romero was hands down our best player. But you got to give massive props to Mickey Van de Ven as well. I mean, in that second half, he was defending all on his own when Romero was high up the pitch. And how many times was Martinelli through on goal? This one through on goal, that one through on goal. None of them had a chance. Literally none of them had a chance. Van de Ven gobbled them up for fun every single time.
It was great, and it's not easy to do because think about that Arsenal game against Villa. They were very similar situation, right? Piling players forward, and they just needed one long ball to Watkins, and he was in on goal, and they made it 2, right? So they just needed one chance to do that. Yeah, Arsenal, we're chasing the game, and yet they're putting Havertz and then Martinelli for on goal multiple times, and yet Van de Ven's there every single time to gobble it up. So it shows what an asset he is.
If we didn't have Van de Ven yesterday, that second half could have been a bit of a bloody onslaught, because we could have lost about 5, 6 or 7. I'm not even joking. That's how many goals Van de Ven saved, literally on his own.
Agreed.
Jory, big up Jory. He says, and selected Højbjerg. He gave Saka acres with Davis to cover. He had zone defence on corners like a novice. The list goes on. Unlucky every game. Nah, that's Ange not testing the odds. Strike 3. Big up. He's saying he's not happy with Ange.
I think there's a lot to criticise. I think Davis, obviously, he didn't really have too much of a choice to whether to play him or not, but he could have guessed put Van de Ven there maybe. But, Davis is our backup left back, so he put him in. And I always thought that was going to be a difficult one up against Saka, and so it proved. When it comes to the corners, 100% that's on Ange. He's the one who continues to set up in that way. He's the one who's seen the issues. It's not like this is a new issue. This has been an issue from us for a long, long time. Then you're coming up against the best set-piece team in the league, and you're doing things exactly the same way. So I agree with that, and I do hope he comes up with something new next year. And it's not like things can change. Arsenal weren't always this good at set pieces, you know what I mean? So it shows they can adapt and change year on year. And I'm sure Ange hopefully next year will take a hard look at that and hopefully sort it out. It's actually been a problem ever since pre-season. I remember even in pre-season we conceded a few goals on set pieces, and he said it's because I haven't had too much time with
Is that the West Ham game we conceded set pieces?
He said, I don't blame the players because I actually haven't had too much time to do set pieces with them, and it seems as though nothing has changed, which is frustrating. But it
seems to be getting worse.
Yeah.
These last 2 games, Newcastle and Arsenal, I mean...
There's been a chance of every set piece.
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't seen such bad defending from set pieces in a long, long time. And that Newcastle game, they probably could have scored about 5 goals from set pieces, literally. We were just lucky they didn't. And then against Arsenal, we conceded our first 2 corners that we conceded in the game. It's a shambles.
And in terms of Ange selected Højbjerg, I mean, yes, he selected Højbjerg, he didn't have a good game, scored an own goal, and wasn't great, but could have easily played Basuma, and then he could have had a shock, and then we said, you should have dropped him, you should have played Højbjerg, Basuma's not been in good form, doesn't deserve to start, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of like pick your poison on that kind of one.
All right, let's move on to player ratings. We're going to start off with Big Vic. 5s all round for Vicario. And look, he barely had a save to make throughout the game. That's the reality. He did make 1 good save. But apart from that, I mean, he didn't get close to any of the goals. He was weak from set pieces. I felt Ben White was like bullying him at times. He didn't stand up for himself, which was the real frustrating thing for me. I mean, especially in a North London derby, you need to be able to stand up for yourselves. You can't show that weak mentality, and I think he did that.
Yeah. That's what I mark him down with. His performance from set pieces was frustrating. He should be doing a lot more to make sure that Arsenal players aren't getting to him, aren't allowing him to be stuck on his line, on outmuscling him and stuff like that. And that unfortunately did happen. That third goal, as much as Havertz pushes Van de Ven, I think it's inside the 6-yard box, isn't it? It's quite close. I think a lot of keepers come out and punch that, and he wasn't able to because he was being held back he was being pushed by an Arsenal player. He shouldn't be allowing that to happen. So very frustrating. Did make a very good save from Saka in the second half with his feet. That was a really good save, actually, because at that point it would have been 4-0, and then it really would have been an embarrassment if that goes in. So it does well there. But that's actually the only shot on target the whole day that didn't go in, so on both sides.
But he's got as much as we need to start defending these set pieces better, he's got to be doing better at commanding his box. It's too many times now where we've seen Vicario come under pressure from these set pieces, and it feels like it all started at that Everton away game, and then everyone's kind of clocked on to a weakness that Vicario has, and he's getting found out a little bit in those aspects, unfortunately. Pedro Porro up next. Sim gives him a 7. I gave him a 6. I thought defensively he was on point throughout the game. I don't think much got past him. But what I had a real problem with Pedro Porro was probably his offensive play, where he was getting in positions to cross the ball in quite a number of times in that second half, and it was just... I seem to be saying this with Pedro Porro quite on a regularity recently, maybe not the Newcastle game, but defensively good, but offensively he's not giving us what he was maybe in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I felt in that second half he did get into a lot of good positions and a lot of his crosses went into Rea's arms, so that's going to be very frustrating. He did play a really great ball over the top to Son right at the end of the first half, pinpoint long through ball, which Son did get on the end of and blazed over the bar, unfortunately. So that was really good. I think he took some good set pieces, which Romero nearly got on the end of, so I think he gets praised for that. I thought he dealt with Trossard quite comfortably on the day as well. But yeah, some of his deliveries in the second half when we were really putting Arsenal under pressure, and we know he's got the quality, especially when you got the likes of Richarlison and Romero in the box, he's got the quality to put it on one of their heads, and unfortunately he didn't do that, so gets a mark down for that. But I thought he had a pretty good game overall.
Cuti Romero up next, him gives him a 9, I gave him an 8. I thought it was a brilliant display from Romero, probably our best player on the day. From a defensive standpoint, from an offensive standpoint, he was everywhere, pressing high up the pitch, becoming an attacker at some points in the game. He was our closest to another goal. You know, he hits the post, he gets that goal from David Rea's poor pass out the back. He had another shot as well throughout the game. I just thought he was absolutely everywhere, showing his aggressive streak. Ange commended his display after the game and said that maybe some of the other players should take a leaf out of his book, and I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, he absolutely everywhere, wasn't he? Literally, it's hard to say that for a defender, for a centre-back, sorry, that they're absolutely everywhere, but he quite literally was, covering the whole back line and playing up front for half an hour as well, and being quite effective. Hit the post, had a header wide. He had beat Rea to another one as well, which unfortunately couldn't keep down, headed it over the bar, and obviously just a striker's finish for the goal that he did score, latching onto a mistake from Rea. And I thought defensively was fantastic, getting stuck in, getting stuck into those challenges. Unfortunately, it's difficult to talk about a great defensive display when you concede 3 goals. But I look at the 3 goals we conceded. I don't think Romero was at fault for any of them. So it's just a bit of a weird day where we were really good defensively, yet we're sitting here losing 3-2. But I thought Romero was excellent throughout and probably man of the match.
Yeah, Mickey van der Ven up next. 8s all round for Mickey. Again, I thought he was brilliant. Obviously got that goal, but it was a slither offside, which was a very frustrating one.
Took it well.
Yeah, he did take it well. Just like Romero, our centre-backs know how to put the ball in the back of the net. And by the way, back on Romero, 5 goals this season. I think the most out of any centre-back this season.
More than Jesus.
But Mickey van der Ven, I thought particularly in the second half is where he earned his money. The amount of times Arsenal looked like they were through on goal, and every single time he was just arriving there like Superman. Nobody could get past him, and even when they did get past him, he was there with his recovery runs to recover that ball time and time again. So without Mickey van der Ven yesterday, we could have conceded 5, 6 or 7.
Yeah, good display. What I would say as well with Mickey van der Ven, I think the first corner comes because Vicario plays a pass out wide to him, which wasn't a great pass, but as well, he was struggling to play out the back. He gives the ball away, and Arsenal get in a dangerous situation, get a corner, and they end up scoring from it. So I do think there are situations sometimes with Van der Ven where he doesn't look that comfortable when he's trying to play out the back. I don't think he's as comfortable as Romero for sure in terms of using his passing. Although there was some situation, he did a nice clip ball over into Ben Davies into space, which was really good stuff from him. So there was some good stuff. Obviously, he did have the goal, and yeah, as you say, that second half I thought it was absolutely astonishing, especially in those last 20 minutes where we could have easily been counted on a few times.
And he was on his own. He was completely on his own.
It was a one-man show in that second half. And I just loved it. I remember there was a few times where we lose the ball and Arsenal played a long ball over the top and Martinelli's running onto it, and we had the guy behind us going, he's got no chance. Talking about Martinelli, not Van der Ven. He's like, he ain't going anywhere. And then Van der Ven, you just see him getting in front of him and bam, he wins the ball back. And I thought he had, just for those last 20 minutes, he gets an extra 2 points, I think, because he was incredible.
But it highlights again the over-reliance on one player at the back with Mickey van der Ven. I know Romero was brilliant, but without Mickey van der Ven, the system don't work.
Well, I think in the second half, no, that bit it's a bit different because we're throwing caution to the wind.
But we've seen it time and time again this season.
We have, but not one defender back like that. That's like the.
But I'm talking about that Mickey van der Ven recovery runs. I mean, how many times have we seen it that season where he just gets us out of jail?
Yeah, 100%. We are very reliant on him. So, but look, when you got to be fair, when you've got a defender with that kind of pace, you might as well use it. You know what I mean?
Next up is Ben Davies fielding at left back. 5s all round for him, and he struggled. Man, he really did struggle with Bukayo Saka. Everyone knew that he was going to struggle with coming up against a winger like Saka on the day, and that's exactly what happened. It culminated in him just trying to take lumps out of him in that second half to try and contain him, but. Look, I think he did struggle on the day defending against Saka, but I thought for the most part, when he wasn't coming up against Saka, he was all right, to be fair.
Yeah, he did some good things. He was aggressive on some occasions and did win the ball back, and he made some good crunching challenges and got the crowd up. In a weird way, even though Saka scored a goal in the first half, I thought in the first half he actually didn't have too much trouble against Saka, apart from the one time where he did and ended up scoring, obviously. But I thought in the second half he did really struggle. Every time they got the ball to Saka, he was taking him on, beating him, getting closer to the goal, and he had to resort to just fouling him time and time again to stop him. There was no other option but to foul him. So it was a bit of a mismatch, I thought, especially in that second half. I don't think it was a shocker by any means from Davis, but definitely I don't come out of that game thinking he competed with Saka, because I thought Saka had him on toast most of the time. Yeah,
but it was good to see as well, though. Like, if you know that you're going to get beaten, just take him out, and that's what he did for the most part in the second half. Next up is Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. 5s all round for him. A surprise inclusion. Everyone was shocked when they saw him on the team sheet, me included, and I think it was the wrong decision from Ange. I really do. I don't think he impacted much of what we wanted to do. He was aggressive in the middle of the park, but I do feel like he was found out a little bit. Scores that own goal, which shouldn't be happening, and it kind of just, when he went off, it was rightly so.
Yeah. I also do blame him for the own goal. I think the reason he scores that own goal was his own doing, because he's not goal side to Tomiyasu, making himself stretch, which means that he's forced to head it backwards, and he ended up conceding the own goal. So I do think it was his mistake. It wasn't just one of those own goals that was unlucky. I think he made a mistake from that. I think on the ball as well, I did think he struggled. I didn't think he used his passing range enough, and when he was being pressured and he was asked to play his way out of trouble, I think he had a lot of trouble doing that. But yeah, I do agree on when we were counter-pressing them and we were getting in those aggressive phases of play, he was very much part of that, and he was doing a good job winning the ball back for Spurs. But unfortunately, he showed exactly why a lot of the times he hasn't been trusted this season.
Bentancur up next. Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 6. I thought he started the game really well, being aggressive in the middle of the park, putting in the tackles and interceptions, showing a bit of silky skills as well. But I just felt like once he reached a peak, maybe like 10-15 minutes into the game, he was just weaning out the game for the rest of that first half, and he did get taken off at half-time. Probably rightly so, because Pat Matisar, who came on in the second half, was a lot better from him, showed a lot more energy levels, and maybe it's just we're seeing Bentancur coming back from that long ACL.
Yeah, and again with Bentancur, he seems to be better when he's in the opposition half, when he's in our own half, or when he's in the opposition half and he's pressing high and he's winning the ball back and he's keeping the ball. He seemed to be quite effective, but as soon as Arsenal got into our half and he was asked to cover a lot of ground and get into position, I thought he was struggling quite a bit, and that was unfortunate. He doesn't seem to be able to cover the ground he used to just yet. And I think we've seen that over the last couple of games against Newcastle and this one, where he's asked to cover a lot of ground. He's finding it difficult still, which is why probably we need Sarr back in the team. Not to say he'll never get back to those levels, but clearly he's still struggling with it. And unfortunately, he was rightly taken off at the break.
James Madison up next. 4s all round for Madison. And when you have so much possession and you need someone to pick the lock, you need someone to play through the eye of the needle, and he just didn't do that. I felt like every time he got the ball, he was just so frustrating. And even off the ball, where all season, even when he hasn't been good this season, he's been really good off the ball with his, duels and tackles and just being a nuisance in the middle of the park, dropping deep and that. I just don't think he did that yesterday, and he's a major cause of frustration yesterday, and I thought he was our worst player on that pitch.
Yeah, he was pretty anonymous, to be honest, which is not the kind of performance you want from your supposed biggest creative force, your talisman in that central midfield. You need him to be taking responsibility. You need him to be bringing those magic moments. You need him to pull something out of the bag, and unfortunately yesterday, he was pretty anonymous. When he did try things, they weren't coming off. He didn't try too many of them as well. A lot of the times he was just playing safe. And and he seemed to tire pretty quickly. I think he was rightfully taken off. I thought at the moment Arsenal were on top in those first 20 minutes of the second half. Madison seemed just anonymous. He wasn't getting involved in duels. He wasn't getting stuck in. He wasn't standing up to be counted. And it was a really poor performance. I'm not saying he didn't try, because I do think he tried. I just think on the day, it was a really, really bad day for him. He didn't, win enough duels. He didn't create anything. And when he's not doing that, you got to take him off, and that's what we did.
Yeah, and it seems to be happening, maybe not as bad as this, but it seems to be happening way too often now with James Madison. I mean, I can't remember since he's been back from injury. I mean, he hasn't played well by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe in a couple of games, he scored against Aston Villa, he got a goal, an assist in one of the other games as well. But it's a shadow of the player that we saw in the first 10 games of the season.
Yeah, that's the reality.
Next up, Dejan Kulusevski. Sim gives him an 8. I gave him a 7. I thought he was our best attacking outlet on the day, especially in the first half. The amount of times he was winning the ball, driving us up the pitch. They couldn't deal with him at times, Dejan Kulusevski. But the reality is, however good he was in those aspects of the game, which he was brilliant with his ball carrying ability. We didn't test Raya enough, and I think when you've got an attacking player like Dejan Kulusevski, he's got to be doing more to provide the ball to the attacking players. And Heung-min Son was isolated in the number 9 for the majority of the game, and that is down to the likes of Dejan Kulusevski, Timo Werner, Brennan Johnson, and James Madison for not offering the deliveries.
I thought Deke had a great game, really great game. I thought they couldn't really handle him when he was on the ball. I thought a lot of the time. 5 completed dribbles, which is no mean feat against a very difficult Arsenal defence. I think more than anyone else on the pitch as well. Really impressive stuff from Deke. They couldn't get the ball off him. And this is what he can provide for us in the attacking phases of play when he's on his game. He's very difficult to get the ball off because he's so strong. He can muscle away from defenders, and that's exactly what he did. He was unfortunate a couple of occasions, should have had a penalty, very nearly had a penalty in the second half. Partey just gets a touch on the ball, but he makes a driving run down the centre. He did really well to win the ball back high up, and I think he had a shot from 25 yards which got blocked. I think he had a really good cross in to Romero, who headed it over the bar after he beat Romero. So that was after he beat Raya, sorry. So that was a good piece of play. And I actually thought as well, once he moved centrally, he was doing some really good things. He was finding really difficult pockets of spaces. He was allowing us to sustain attacks, keep possession in those central areas. But unfortunately, when it came to, especially late in the game, when it came to him providing that little moment of quality, which could have got us a goal, we couldn't really provide that, unfortunately. But I did think in general play, his ability to, his tackling off the ball stuff, and his ability to dribble and keep possession was outstanding. And really much better than he's performed recently as well. Yeah, absolutely. He needed that day, Jan Kulusevski, yesterday. But I just want to see him do more in the final third, because I know he's got it in him. Timo Werner, Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 4. He went off fairly early. I mean, what time did he go off in the game? 30th minute he went off yesterday, and I felt like when he was on the pitch for the first half an hour, it was pretty much anonymous. I think he had about 15 touches on the ball, lost the ball 5 times, didn't provide any crosses, didn't have a shot on goal. I mean, I think he was really anonymous. Yeah, maybe he was playing with an injury, or I don't know. Don't play him then if he's playing with an injury. Yeah, well, maybe it's something happened early in the game. Because I don't know, because obviously he was taken off very early. I think it was after a run down the left-hand side as well. So I don't know whether he pulled it at that moment or whether he pulled something earlier in the game and then it caught up to him at that moment. I'm not sure what happened with him. But yeah, it wasn't a great game for him, unfortunately. And obviously replaced by Brennan Johnson fairly quickly. Yeah, and the last of the starting 11 was Heung-min Son. 6 all round for Sonny. Has that chance in the first half that he blazed over the bar. He probably was someone of Sonny's quality. He's got to be doing better from that aspect. Did get that penalty. What a penalty it was, by the way. Raya dives the right way, has no chance with it, puts it in the back of the net for Spurs to go 3-2 down. But apart from that, he was just being marked out the game essentially, and these players that you need, these other players to provide for him when he's in the number 9, especially when you're playing against a low block. It's going to be very hard for Sonny, and it always is playing against a low block, and I think that's what we saw yesterday. And these players like Madison, Kulusevski, like I mentioned before, the attacking players need to be providing better service for him. Yeah, obviously he did have that one chance over the top, which right at the end of the first half, which he should have probably buried. That was the only real time he really threatened him behind. Obviously Arsenal did set up in a different kind of way than they do in the majority of games, and they were a lot more pragmatic. The defensive line was a lot lower than it usually is. It was very similar to the Man City game. So on that basis, you know, he probably should have shifted Son to the left a bit earlier than he did, and bring, you know, and you need a bit of a presence in the box if that's how Arsenal are going to be playing. And I did think Sonny improved a bit once he moved over to the left. He did take on Ben White on a couple of occasions. There was one where he did lay it back for Richarlison, but I think Rishi had a shot blocked. You know, it was a really dangerous moment right at the end of the game. But even on the left, to be honest, it wasn't exactly like he was fantastic. He just provided a bit more, but wasn't still struggled to really impact the game fully. I felt on that left-hand side. But yeah, as you say, great penalty in a pressure situation, gave Raya no chance, and it was nice to finally get a penalty, wasn't it? It's been so long.
Yeah, second penalty all season. I mean, we probably should have had about 3 or 4 just in the game yesterday, which was mad. But it was Brennan Johnson who came on first in the first half. He came on after half an hour for Timo Werner, and I thought actually Brennan, 6s all round by the way, but I think he actually, you know, he played well to a certain extent, where he had the beating for his fullback, his dribbling ability was on show, you know, he was beating men for fun. But it's his end product once again. You know, those crosses in the box were just so poor. Every single one was just a floated cross into David Raya's hands, and that was the most frustrating thing. Like, if he would have put good crosses in the box, you're probably talking about an 8 performance with the dribbling ability that he did show on the day. But unfortunately, it's the end product that lets him down.
I thought he was much better once he moved back to the right. I thought he wasn't great on the left, to be honest. So that was a good switch. Once he moved back to the right and was taking on Tomiyasu on his weaker foot, I thought he was much improved, and Tomiyasu was really struggling to deal with him. In fact, I think they had to swap it. I think did they swap him? Did they put someone else at left back near the end? I can't remember. But anyway, he was really struggling.
Kiwior came on, didn't he?
Yeah, Kiwior did come on. And not only was he doing really good stuff going on the outside, but as well, actually, what I really like about Johnson, he's doing this a few times recently, he's dribbling on the inside when he sees a bit of space, and he knows he's fast enough to look at a small gap inside and go for it. And it was actually causing some trouble for Arsenal there as well. But unfortunately, as you say, when he got into those positions which his dribbling got him into, it wasn't enough to. That's not enough. You got to then show quality at the end of it. And unfortunately, way too many of his deliveries were long floated balls to the back post, which was so easily gobbled up by David Raya. And unfortunately, he didn't have too many opportunities himself to attack the back post on this one. But the delivery just needs to be better, and that's just a big source of frustration at the moment from our wide areas, that we're just not having the quality delivery at the moment.
Yeah, he had 4 crosses on the day, and none of them went anywhere. I think every single one went into Raya's arms, and that was the big source of frustration there. But let's move on to Pape Matar Sarr, who came on at half-time. 7s all round for Pape, who I thought was brilliant, to be honest, when he came on. I think he really came into his own when we made those other changes in the last 20 minutes, half an hour of the game, where we really dominated and we were looking to create and come back into the game. He just kept us up the field. He kept winning the ball back. He kept recycling the ball, and that press that he had on just kept pushing us up the field and kept us up there. And I love the protection that he gave Heung-min Son for the penalty that we had as well. So I thought Pape was really good, and it probably showed a mistake from Ange not to start him.
Yeah. Agreed. I thought it was a really good second half from him. Covered a lot of ground, brings that energy that we needed, that ability to cover so much space, which was so crucial to sustaining that pressure in that second half. And I thought it was a really good cameo. And yeah, maybe he showed to Ange that, you know, he should have been in the first 11, but unfortunately he did pick Bentancur. But yeah, really good second half from Sarr.
Bissouma up next, 6s all round for Bis. I think he came on and did his job well. I think defensively, I think he did well. Passing, I mean, he didn't do any adventurous passing, but what he did do was kept the ball moving and kept the ball ticking. And when he came on was our most dominant phase of that second half, where we just had Arsenal penned in, and I thought he was actually quite an important part of that.
Yeah, I thought he did better than Højbjerg, and Højbjerg was really struggling in build-up, whereas Bissouma did pretty well. I don't think he did anything too special, just kept things simple, but that was kind of what was needed. Let the attacking players do the attacking stuff a bit more, which is fine. Yeah, I thought it was a nice cameo from him. I don't think it was outstanding, but it was better than what preceded him.
Richarlison, 6s all round for Rish, and what he did do was provide us with a bit of a focal point up front, provide us with more aggression in that number 9 role as well. I loved, he probably gets a mark up just for bashing into Gabriel the way he did, but yeah, at the end of the day, he didn't provide too much of a threat for the Arsenal defence.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's not really totally his fault, was it? Because the deliveries into him were not great, and the wide players have to take responsibility for that. But I agree, there were some really good occasions where they played the ball into feet, and whereas Son was losing it a lot, he was able to hold it a bit more and, you know, get Spurs up the pitch and bring other players into play. So that was really good to see. But unfortunately, wasn't able to impact the game too much when it came to the attacking phases, trying to score and stuff like that.
And last but not least, Ange Postecoglou, 6s all round. I do think he got his team selection wrong on the day, playing Højbjerg. I think it was a mistake. Potentially not starting Brennan Johnson as well, even though Brennan did come on, didn't provide us exactly with good crossing ability. But I think he just had that better aspect when he was on the pitch than what we did have with Timo Werner. So I think he did get his selection wrong to a certain extent. But having said that, I felt like we did, you know, dominate the majority of the game, and you know, you can only go on what you work with, and with the strikers and the attacking players that we do have, I just don't think they're completely fit for purpose in terms of what we're trying to do. And you're playing against a very resolute, a very strong Arsenal team that have got the best defensive record in the league, and you need to be a lot better and a lot clinical with your crosses and with your finishing when you get in those areas. And I'm not sure if you could put that down to Ange or not. I think it's just the players he's got to work with at the moment. But where you can heavily criticise him is the defensive set pieces. I mean, time and time again, we're asking this question, where's the defensive set piece coach? It's not there. He doesn't seem to think that it's like a crazy problem that we do have, and I think it's a massive blight on him, because he needs to be looking at ASAP. Like, it's our biggest problem that we have at the moment. Every single game we're coming under pressure from these set pieces. Every single game we're conceding from these set pieces, and we should be conceding multiple times in games during them. We did yesterday. We didn't against Newcastle. We could have conceded a lot more than we did, and it's becoming a real thorn in our side. So he needs to take a big look at that. And in terms of his game management, I felt like he made the right subs, but he made them a bit too late, in my opinion. I felt Richarlison probably should have come on at half time, and the changes that he did make, he should have made them a lot quicker.
Yeah, I think Richarlison definitely should have come at half time, because you could see how Arsenal would set up. You'd literally seen it for a whole half, so I don't see why he wouldn't have thought that would have changed in the second half. So I definitely think that should have been changed, unless Richarlison only had half an hour in him. I don't know what his situation is from the injury point of view, but yeah, I think he should have made them quicker. In terms of the starting lineup, could you argue he made mistakes potentially? But you know what, he's chopped and changed in the midfield and up front recently so much. You know, you could have put any forward line or midfield combination out there, and we could have been sitting here saying it was a mistake. So I don't think the team out there was a bad team at all. I don't think it would have been that different if he would have started with a different team. I think the fine margins went against us, and on another day we could have easily won that game. I think, but as I completely agree with you, the main thing I'm going to criticise them for is the set pieces and also defensive transitions, which was also something we've been catching. You know, it wasn't just the set pieces. Obviously, you look at the Arsenal second. Yes, we should have a penalty, but you look at Arsenal's second goal. Again, it's one long ball over to Saka, and it's a goal. It's pretty similar to what happened against Newcastle. One long ball to Isaac, and it's a goal. So that's something he's definitely got to sort out as well and look at, because we're conceding way too many goals from that point of view, and we're conceding too many goals from set pieces. What I would say is, when the play is settled and we're in open play, we do look kind of strong, and then we can pen teams in. Then when certain situations come about, especially when we lose the ball in dangerous situations and allow teams to counter, we look vulnerable. And obviously when we concede corners, we look vulnerable. So those are things he needs to sort out. I think those are things that most teams their first season have a learning curve, and they need to. They have things to learn, and they have things to improve, and that's definitely the things we can. I remember Liverpool when they were first under Klopp, kept getting caught out in transitions time and time again, until not only did they find the right players, but the players they do have got more in tune for how Klopp wants them to set up. So these things take time. It was always going to be difficult in his first season to get all these things right. My biggest frustration is they've been a problem for a while and they haven't been sorted. But it doesn't, just because they've been a problem for a while doesn't mean they're easy to sort. So I'm going to give him a bit of slack. Hopefully next season that can all change. But I thought he coached the game pretty well in terms of the subs he made. We kept in the game. I thought we actually played well during the game as well. We could have easily won that game. So it's frustrating. I'm not going to criticise him. I thought he coached the game well. But there's definitely things you can criticise him for. Yeah.
The only difference, I mean, you have slightly mentioned it there, but between him and Liverpool, I mean, they were playing with like a Lovren at the back and players like that. I mean, you're looking at the back four that Spurs have: Porro, Udogie, Van de Ven, Romero. That's probably going to be our back four for the foreseeable future, right? We're not going to upgrade on any of those players. You probably don't think so.
I don't think they're the problem.
Yeah, I mean, what is the problem then? The midfield?
There's a big problem there. They're not shutting down those transitions anywhere near enough, or putting enough pressure on them.
And that. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because when we were at our strongest in the first 10 games of the season, that's when we saw Bissouma at the best, and he was shutting down everything. He was progressive on the ball as well. And we're just seeing anyone that we try in that position, it's just a shadow of that.
You've got to make sure, for example, like Bruno Guimaraes a couple of weeks ago, when he's able to pick that ball up, you need someone there instantly on him. And at least... if he's going to get the pass off, you have to put him under pressure so that the pass isn't accurate or right on the play. If you allow him that little bit of time to get his head up and play the pass, he's got the quality to play someone like Isaac in behind. Yeah, if there's someone on him straight away, bam, that ball comes straight back to us, and we go again, we pen them in. Same with yesterday, Havertz for that ball over the top to Saka.
Brilliant ball, by the way.
Great ball, don't get me wrong, really great. How much time and space did he have to literally look up?
Because they're all complaining about the bloody penalty.
Exactly. He had time and space to look up, play that ball over to Saka, and obviously it's a goal. What we need is our midfielders to be right on that on Havertz, making sure he doesn't have that time and space. So either they're nicking the ball off him, or they're putting him under really so much pressure that and quickly that the pass is not as accurate as it should be. So I think a big problem with our defensive transitions is the midfield at the moment.
Yeah. But in terms of Postecoglou as well, I've seen a lot of big criticism come his way, even some to say a narrative online forming about Ange out and all this kind of thing. I think it's absolutely preposterous. People coming out and saying stuff like that. I think you can clearly, in my opinion, you can clearly see this team is going in the right direction. Like everything that we've had to deal with this season, from the injuries, from losing Harry Kane on the eve of the season, just everything that has gone against us this season, and to still show that we're in and amongst it, and to show these kind of performances against the top sides in the league this season, I think you can clearly see Spurs going in the right direction. And I think, yes, he's got a lot to work on, and yes, he's got a lot to improve on, but I think Ange Postecoglou is the man to take us forward.
Yeah, and it was never going to be perfect in the first season. It never was, and this is the kind of stuff you need to take. Well, the only thing I would say, and the only thing that is a bit frustrating is, at the end of the season, you want to take some momentum going into next season, and we're in danger of not having that momentum at the moment. Hopefully, between now and the end of the season, we have some good performances, and that can change. We get a few big wins or whatever. But the inconsistency we've shown in the last few weeks has people worried that we're going to take that into next season rather than that good momentum that we should be taking.
Yeah, and it's all on the summer business that we do. We've got a big summer ahead of us, and if we make the right transfers in the right positions, then I have no qualms about it that Spurs will be a big team in this league next season.
Talking about right transfers, who was in the Tottenham Stadium yesterday?
Santiago Jimenez and I can't even pronounce his name, the centre back.
Yeah, the centre. Was there someone else?
Guitruda.
Oh, someone else was also there.
They were both there. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Interesting. I think one to keep an eye on, maybe.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, if we can bring both of them in the summer, because they're both top players, and we've spoken about Santiago Jimenez till the cows come home, but I love him as a player. I really do. And if we do bring Santiago in next season, maybe that's more evidence that Sonny will be our left winger next season.
True.
But yeah, that is your player ratings. We've got a couple of super chats to get through before we move on to the 5 takeaways. But Quado Boateng says it's been 13 games since Man City's FA Cup loss. Why wait till 2-0 before assigning someone to protect Big Vic? Our centre-backs are more clinical than our attackers, which it's hard to disagree against that, to be fair.
After the finishing they showed yesterday, definitely hard to disagree with that. One sec, what's Ange said on Timo? He said... Yesterday's North London that Timo felt something in his hamstring. That work is being done to figure out the severity. Okay,
Well, that could be him for the season.
If it's a hamstring, that could easily be 2 weeks. Then a week to get back to much
for the season.
That could be, and if that is for the season, do we take up that option? Do you think?
My mind changes on this every week, literally. But I think the point still stands of what we've been saying all along, that if he's our only left wing signing, then I don't want him. If it is the plan to play Son on the left, I still don't want him because I still think that we need someone better than that. Okay. But if we sign like a Nico Williams and then Timo Werner to caveat on top of that as well, I think I would take it.
Yeah, I agree with that. If our plan is to sign, basically goes down to this: if our plan is to sign one winger, it can't be Timo. If our plan is to sign 2 wingers, 2 left wingers, I should say, then maybe one of them could be Timo.
Yeah, maybe. Andrew Dean with the super chat saying, in Ange we trust. I have a feeling that he's trying to find his best midfield and sees who he wants to keep. Therefore, he keeps to chop and change his starting 11. But is that a problem though? Like, we're at this stage of the season and he still doesn't know his best midfield.
Is it a problem? Yes. It is a problem, but I would say it's more of a problem for the midfielders themselves than Ange.
Yeah, we were coming into this season looking at our midfield options and we were like, wow, well, what a midfield we've got. And it's just not worked out that way.
I do think, look, obviously, Madison, we know his quality. Bentencourt's still getting up to speed. Sarr's obviously quality, we know that. Højbjerg's going to leave. And then the only real worry for me is Basuma. What is going on with him? Is he going to are we ever going to see the Basuma of the first 10 games again, or is this now his true level? That's the real one that's up in the air for me at the moment.
But you talk about Basuma, right? First 10 games to now. I mean, is Madison not showing like similar traits? Like, you're looking at Basuma, we know he's a quality player as well. We know Madison's a quality player. What has happened to them?
The difference with Basuma and Madison is Madison had a 3-month injury.
He did have a 3-month injury, but he's been back for a long time now.
He has, but I don't know. I don't know how this injury has affected him or not, if there's any lasting effects or not. Basuma has only not really had an injury. He had malaria, obviously, but I don't know how severe that was. But a lot of it has been him self-inflicted, red cards, and then he's lost his confidence. I don't know if you can put that down to fitness issues.
Is it alarm bells as well that even before the AFCON, before this malaria thing popped about, he was being taken out the Mali team? Like, if he can't even get into the Mali team, like, how is he going to be good enough for us?
Good question.
Which is massive alarm bells with Basuma, and that's why I think it's imperative for us to get a really strong number 6 in for next season. We have to. That's got to be one of our biggest priorities for the summer transfer window. That and the forward line. It's got to be. because
the main thing you want from your number 6 is consistency. That's what Rice has. That's what Rodri has. That's their biggest asset. It's obviously they're brilliant players, but they never drop below a certain level. That's their biggest thing. Even when they're not having the best game, they're still like a 7 out of 10. And Basuma seems like when he's not having a good game, he's like a 4 or 5. Yeah. And that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, and I think he needs proper competition for that place next season. I don't want to sell him or anything because I still think he's got a lot to give in a Spurs shirt, but maybe he needs to start the season and earn that place back. Start the season on the bench, and earn that place back with healthy competition for next season. But let's move on to the 5 takeaways and see what 5 things we can take away from the game, starting off with 1 all-action. Cuti Romero.
Yeah, absolutely everywhere, Cuti Romero. Could have had a hat-trick yesterday with the amount of shots he had. Hit the post in the first half. Also had a header wide from a corner. He also beat Raya to a header from a Decky cross, which he headed over the bar before, obviously scoring himself. But that wasn't all with Kuti. 4 tackles on the day, second only to Decky. 5 of his 6 aerial duels won. 5 of his 8 ground duels won as well. He was just absolutely everywhere. 97% passing accuracy as well for Kuti Romero. He had an unbelievable display and was literally probably the best defender on the day, the best striker on the day as well, and probably the best player on the day.
Yeah, absolute all-action display from Kuti Romero yesterday. I thought he was brilliant. He really led the team by example. I mean, Sonny was the captain on the day, but I felt like he was the one showing the most leadership ability. He didn't want to lay down for Arsenal at any moment in that game. 3-0 down, he's still showing leadership ability and leading by example. And, you know, the narrative around Kuti Romero is when things are not going his way, he lashes out and becomes maybe a bit of a liability. But he was the complete opposite of that yesterday. He was driving us forward. He was that driving force throughout the game. And I think you're seeing signs throughout, since that Chelsea game where he got sent off, I think you've seen signs all season that he has like kind of put that in the back, in the history books now, and I think that he's moving forward in a real way that you want to see him do that, and you're not seeing him get carried away and put in these crazy challenges. Maybe you saw a few signs of that come in at the end of the Newcastle game when the game was completely done, but I think for the most part you're seeing him grow as a player as well.
Yeah, definitely. And to be fair, apart from that Chelsea game, have we seen that at all from Kuti this season? That kind of
that's what I'm saying, and you did see it at the back end of the Newcastle game.
Okay, fine, yeah, that's true. We were 4-0 down, but I think he's been exemplary for a long time now, Kuti. I thought this was a fantastic Roy the Rovers kind of display, and it's a shame, as Ange said, a lot of the other players weren't on his level. And he actually put out a really nice message, Romero, after the game. I don't know if I can find it. He said something like, obviously disappointed with the result or something, but he said said something to the extent of this performance makes us believe even more in the project, something like that. So that was a really nice message from Kuti. And as Ange said, you know, he's a World Cup winner. He has that fire in him, and I feel like if that fire was matched by everyone, you know, teams would hate playing against us. Yeah,
and hopefully that's just a sign of the growth that is still to come in this team, because like Ange said, if anyone can take a leaf out of Kuti Romero's book, they'll be on to a very good thing. So there's a lot of people calling calls for him to be made captain as well after that performance yesterday. What do you make out of that?
Calls for him to be captain? I don't think it makes too much difference, because I do think he's a captain on the pitch anyway. He's one of the vice captains. I think Son's a great captain, so I don't think there's a need to change it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if I don't know, if Son really is going to be leaving in the next couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the next captain.
But with Son at the age that he is at, you're looking at the succession plan, aren't you? And Kuti Romero does look like the obvious choice.
Definitely.
Moving on to number 2, and that is aggressive Decky.
Yeah, and he was a shining light yesterday, Decky, but it wasn't just a lot of the good stuff he was doing on the ball, which was some really good stuff. 5 successful dribbles, 2 key passes on the day as well, which was more than anyone else on the Spurs team. 5 dribbles, which was more than anyone else on the pitch. So he was doing some really good stuff on the ball, off the ball though as well. Really, really aggressive and really set the tone for our pressing yesterday. 5 tackles, which is more than anyone else on the pitch. 13. He was involved in 22 duels, winning 13 of them as well, which showed his willingness to really get stuck in and really make sure that he was hounding the Arsenal defenders and maybe not giving them a moment's rest. And it was really, really, really impressed from Decky. I felt like in our attacking phase of play, he was the one really standing up to be counted, making sure that making it as difficult as possible for Arsenal, asking different questions on them on and off the ball. And again, similar to Kuti, I felt like if the other attackers were on Decky's level, could be in a different game.
Yeah, I do still feel like he was a bit frustrating in the final third, which we'll talk about in the next topic. But from his general gameplay, absolutely brilliant. His best performance in a while in a Spurs shirt. They just couldn't handle him. They didn't know how to deal with him. He was coming inside and providing an option in midfield and just being a real nuisance to handle. His dribbling and ball carrying ability was on there for all to see yesterday. So hopefully this can kind of start a new wave of Decky kind of confidence, because he showed that confidence yesterday. It's just something he hasn't shown maybe in the last month or so. So let's hope that brings him back to form. Let's move on to number 3, and this is what I was talking about, but the final ball lacking.
Yeah, and yesterday was a key example again of our final quality in the final third just not really being there, and it's something that's cost us a lot this season. Yes, we have got goals from crosses this season. Brennan's been able to find a few assists, and so has Timo, but when it comes to consistency, and as well against some of the better sides, it was definitely lacking. And yesterday, 72% possession, we had 34 crosses yesterday, 34 crosses on the day, compared to I think 14 from Arsenal. Yeah, only 4 were successful. 4 out of 34, and when you're putting that level of crosses in the box, you need to at least be getting double figures when it comes to successful balls into the box. And the fact that only 4 were successful is an indictment on the lack of quality we showed in those positions, and especially in those last 20 minutes. If we had at least 1 or 2 successful crosses, could have easily gotten that late equaliser or back in the game sooner. And unfortunately, we just didn't have that.
Yeah, and that was the biggest source of frustration on the day for me, apart from the set pieces. Just the amount of times we had it out wide, whether it be Porro, Brennan Johnson, Kulusevski, Werner, Son, all the players that we had out wide at the time. None of them could seem to put in a good ball in the box. Every single one, it felt like, particularly when we were really on top in the last 20 minutes, just floated into Raya's hand. Those floated crosses were just pissing me off so much. And it's not something we've seen, a lack of maybe conviction from crosses before, but we weren't trying those like low driven ones to the back post, which we found so many successful goals with this season. We just weren't trying that, and those floated crosses into Raya's hand time and time again was just so annoying, and they need to be doing better in that aspect, 100%. But moving on to the next one, number 4 is a first for Arsenal.
Yeah, and Arsenal obviously were under the cosh a lot. It's the first time this season that they've conceded 72% possession, and actually the first time this season as well they've conceded over 2 XG in any game this season in the Premier League, which is even more than frustrating. We couldn't take advantage of it. We also restricted Arsenal to 1.1 XG, which is one of their lowest tallies of the season, and it's frustrating that, obviously Spurs were dominant, but in open play we were very dominant. But those set pieces obviously was our undoing. But it goes to show how hard it is to create the level of chances we did yesterday, because it's the first time that they've conceded that amount of expected goals in any game, and the fact we didn't, take full advantage of that is very frustrating. Yep,
it is very frustrating, and like I keep saying, I don't think we deserve to lose the game, and those stats do bear that out. And 2 games over Arsenal this season, like I mentioned in the preview, and I don't think we've looked the second best team by any stretch of the imagination over those 2 games. And yes, Arsenal are the better team than us. You've got to say that right now. They are challenging for the title 2 years in a row. But I think that's a credit to Ange Postecoglou and the way he's improved this team to show that we're a match for anyone in this league when we want to be.
Yeah, and I think it's literally fine margins. We have a corner that hits the post. They have a corner that leads in an own goal. We have a ball over the top to Son, which we put over. They have a ball over the top to Saka, which they score. Like, we have another set piece from Romero, which heads wide. They have another one from Havertz that goes in. These fine margins are what win and lose games, especially at the games at this level, and against a team fighting for the title. And those are things on another day could have easily gone into our favour.
Yeah, and to be where we are at this stage of the project, towards the end of the first season of the project, with everything accounted for, losing Harry Kane and everything like that, I think you can only be proud of where we're at right now and kind of taking these teams to the end.
Definitely.
And last but not least, 5th and final takeaway is top 4 hangs by a thread.
Yeah,
I'll say top 4 hangs by a dead.
By a thread. Well, it's not completely gone yet until it's mathematically over. So with that, yesterday's defeat, even though Villa drew on Saturday night, they actually extended their points difference by a point because with our loss. So It's now we're now 7 points behind Villa with 2 games in hand. Obviously, one of them being on Thursday against Chelsea. So that really has become a must-win if we want any sort of chance of being in that top 4. If we do win, that does go to 4 points behind with 1 game in hand. So then all of a sudden it doesn't look completely out of the question. But I do think, obviously, without a win on Thursday, I think you can pretty much kiss it goodbye, I would say. But that defeat very, very damaging for our hopes. And as well, it could easily get into a situation now where City need to win. Well, it's not there yet, but if Arsenal win their next 2 games, then it's going to be a situation where City have to beat us to overtake them with their game in hand. So it's going to be a very awkward situation.
Yep, it's not a situation that we haven't been in before. Cast your mind back to wanting Manchester United to beat us back in the 90s or early 2000s. I can't remember exactly what season it was. I think it happened on a multiple times of occasion, to be honest, in the Wenger days. But it's nothing that we're strangers to, wanting oppositions to beat us so Arsenal can't win the league, which is a sad story in itself. But in terms of top 4, I never really believed over the last couple of weeks that we were going to make it. I felt like it died at St James's Park. You can't lose 4-0 in that stage of a season and expect to go above a Villa team that are playing really well and getting consistent results. And Villa, they had a wobbly time of it 3 or 4 weeks ago, but they're getting consistent results at the moment. Yes, I know they drew with Chelsea and probably could have lost that game, but I'm looking at Villa and I see a team that wants it a lot more than this Tottenham side in terms of this top 4. Am I too bothered by it? Not really. I think this team is still showing progression. As long as we do show progression and keep showing progression next season, that's all that really matters to me. And I feel like I see some values being in the Europa League next season in terms of where this team is at anyway. But look, if we do make it, which I very much can't see it, then credit to the team. But I think it's just a pipe dream at this point, to be honest.
Well, when the gap is 7 points, that massively obviously is in Villa's favour. But look, if we can win on Thursday, I think it changes things again. So we have to go to Stamford Bridge and win. I think that's the only course of action. Then obviously we go to Liverpool. Our Villa play Brighton away. Brighton aren't in the best form, but that's not going to be the easiest game. We'll have to wait and see if they win that one after Europe. And then after that, we play. We also play Burnley at home when they play Liverpool. So if we can easily get 3 points off them, 3-point jump there. So
Liverpool can't beat anyone at the moment. That's the reality, though.
Yeah, well, maybe we can beat them then.
Yeah, maybe we can beat them, but I think Villa might beat them as well. But we'll see, in terms of if it comes down to it, though, in that Man City game, I prefer us to lose that Man City game than us having a hope of top 4 anyway. Yeah,
but that might not matter to the team. So we're looking at, regardless of that, whether we're going to get top 4 or not. And I don't think if we win on Thursday, I think there's still a chance it will happen.
Yeah, I disagree. I think it's gone. I think it's long gone.
4 points with the game in hand, you can't say it's gone in that position.
I just don't think that we have enough in us to go in a consistent run from now to the end of the season. And I don't think with Villa's 3 games left of the season, I don't think we'll get nowhere near enough points to finish above them. Nowhere near.
I think it all depends. It all rides on Thursday. I think we need to win.
Every week when we lose, you're like, maybe if this happens and that happens and this happens and this happens, we'll get top 4. I mean, if we don't get,
that's how football works.
If we don't get top 4, I don't think we have been good enough this season to get top 4. And that's just the reality of it.
I think if we get there, then we have been good enough.
Yeah, but I don't think we will get there. But anyway, that is your 5 takeaways from the game yesterday. Let's move on and see how the internet did react to the game. First up is Invert the Wing, who was really angry yesterday after the game. He says, I want Heung-min Son to start on the wing next game just to see that playing him number 9 is not the problem. What the problem is James Madison's form and having no elite creators centrally. Pedro Porro has also experienced a significant dip. He is left isolated as a result and has to do everything himself. You play Kulusevski and Lo Celso and it is a different story. And I actually, for one, would like to see probably Madison come out the team for this game against Chelsea.
Well, considering Decky played quite well in the centre, and Madison's form, I think needs must at the moment. I think something's going on with Madison. I don't know whether it's form or not. Maybe a position when he's coming off the bench against tired legs will be better for him at the moment.
Sonny Cho Joy says, when Sonny was about to take the penalty, Ben White came to shit talk, but Pape quickly ran over and blocked him off, and that was some great work from Pape Matar yesterday.
Get in, Pape, not taking anything from Ben White. And obviously it worked wonders, because what a penalty it was from Sonny.
Yeah. Dan Kilpatrick says, assuming Arsenal and City keep winning, City's visit to the Spurs on 14th of May is going to be so weird. Most of the home fans will presumably be desperate not to win. And yeah, and that's exactly where I'm at. I mean, don't let Arsenal win the league at all costs is what I say.
Yeah, it's going to be very strange. Let's hope it doesn't come down to that, but it's going to be, it looks like at the moment it is heading that way. So it's going to be a very weird game at the Tottenham Stadium. I do wonder. What I'm sure Andrew will say, I don't care I don't care about that. I don't care about Arsenal. I only want what's best for Spurs, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that'll be the party line from Spurs, but it's going to be interesting to see what the kind of atmosphere it is like in the stadium on the day.
Like, if Arsenal do keep winning and we do need to, lose to Man City, what do you reckon the reaction will be when if we go 1-0 up? Well, what will the reaction be if we go 1-0 down?
I don't know. Start cheering. I don't know. It'll be weird. It'll be good. I don't know. It's going to be very, very strange. It's hard to say exactly. Obviously, we've had like these. I think last season, obviously Arsenal were in a title race with City, and we ended up beating City, but that was like in January time.
It was way earlier. Yeah.
It was way earlier. It didn't have the same kind of real feeling about it.
This is too important. This is like the second last game of the season.
This is like the game.
This is
their game in hand to win. They need to win this specific game to win the league, essentially. So it's, I don't know. It's going to be very weird. I think if there's a genuine chance of Spurs, let's say if we win this game, we actually move into the top 4. I think it won't. I don't think the atmosphere will be as weird. But let's say we're 5th.
I still think it will be weird though.
Let's say 4th is gone. There's no chance of 4th. We can only finish 5th. Then I think probably everyone will want City win.
The thing is though, like, I still think the majority of Spurs fans would prefer Arsenal not to win the league than us to finish 4th. I still think that's probably a reality.
But I still think a lot of Spurs fans would like us to finish 4th as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but not at the hands of Arsenal winning the league.
Not at the hands of Arsenal winning, but like when you're in the game, you're watching it, you want your team to win, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. I still think, either way, it's going to be a weird atmosphere for sure. It's hard. I've never been to a home game where the majority of fans want us to lose for, so it's like on unprecedented territory. At least even in the United game, that was away from home. The season was dead.
No, but there was one at home, I think there was, where Les Ferdinand put us 1-0 up.
That was away.
Was that away?
That was in '99. That was last day of the season.
And I do remember the narrative coming out of that game. Les Ferdinand put us 1-0 up, and some of the Spurs fans were booing.
Yeah.
So I don't see why it being a different situation this time.
It's at home. I don't know. It's just weird. I've never seen it at home like that. So we'll see. I would look. Do I think that Spurs fans would boo their team going 1-0 up in any game?
Well, you've seen it before.
Yeah, but that's away fans. It's different. Away fans are different to home fans.
Well, you're going to have the South Stand, 16 or however many thousand of them in that stand, and a lot of them, well, you're going to say 3,000 of them are away-going fans, and a lot of them are dying to get away tickets, so they're probably of that same mentality.
We'll see. Look, as I say, if I don't think they would boo us going 1 up if top 4 was genuinely a possibility.
I don't think I would boo personally, but I would give it a fuck's sake. Professor Spurs or Prof Spurs says Heung-min Son is in the top 5 for goal contributions this season in the Premier League. Ollie Watkins sitting on top with 31, Cole Palmer 29, Erling Haaland 26, Mo Salah 26, and Heung-min Son on 25.
Yep. I think he's had a good season overall, Sonny, although definitely hasn't been the same, I feel like, since he's come back from the Asia Cup. I don't think he's been as good as he was before the Asia Cup. So I do hope that this isn't a sign of any decline or anything. I don't think it is, but obviously he's not improving, but I still think clearly he's got a lot to give, and those goal contributions prove it.
Next up, what have we got? All right, why not? A quick mention to Spurs Kings TV reaching
big up Ash
a milestone 2,000 subscribers. If you haven't already, go and subscribe to Spurs Kings TV. Big contributors here on We Are Tottenham TV, Ashmatic and Marlon, and the rest of their team as well. So big up to each and every one of them. Next up is THFC report saying Santiago Jimenez and Luciano Getruda was at the Spurs Stadium yesterday watching the North London derby.
So they didn't run a mile after what they saw.
But yeah, I mean, if that means anything, maybe they've just come over to watch the game. But we have seen these kind of things happen before. I mean, Mickey van der Ven was at a game, wasn't he, before he signed for us? Or was it a pre-season
I think
friendly?
he had signed by that time.
Oh, he had signed.
If I remember. All the talks were like, he's pretty much
advanced, yeah. But maybe the talks have advanced here.
Maybe. I'd like to think that if they're at the ground and they're real advanced talks, there would have been some reports on it. But maybe... I don't know. Maybe they just want to watch the game, or maybe there is something more to it.
I would love it because they are two top players.
Yeah, it'll be interesting though with because if Arne Slot's going to Liverpool, whether he'd be interested in bringing him with him as well.
Yeah. Maybe he's gone. Maybe they went to that Anfield earlier in the week and they're just coming to see a good game in the North London derby. Who knows? But next up is Sonny Choi just showing that Pape protecting Heung-min Son again. Pape protecting Sonny during his penalty, making sure he has no distractions from the likes of Ben White. Ben White is such a shithouse, isn't he?
Can't stand that guy.
StatMuse FC saying most goals in a North London derby in a single Premier League season. Adebayor, Van der Vaart and Heung-min Son joins that list as well of 3 goals in a season.
Kane never got 3 in a season.
Yeah.
I guess he's limited to 2. Wow, fair enough. But well done, Sonny. He's also got a good record in North London derby, doesn't he?
Sonny, yes.
Very good record.
And as that shows, most goals in a single season in North London derby. Enes Ozan, I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. So we'll move on from that one. Tom Allnut says Spurs have now conceded 2 or more goals. 2 goals or more in games versus 13 out of the 19 opponents in the league. Goal difference from set pieces alone is now 19 worse than Arsenal. More points, more goals, more fun. But can Ange Ball get serious to get better?
I think... Yeah, look, you can throw these stats here, and they don't look for good reading, a lot of them. But again, when you're at this stage of the process, like these questions are always going to be asked because you're not going to be perfect at this point. So you're always going to get these questions asked. When is it going to improve? Can we improve these things? We seem to be doing the same mistakes over and over again. But I'm not going to judge it totally based on this season. I think what you judge it on is on the pitch. It's not purely on stats and goals conceded, all this kind of stuff. It's about where do you see the problems? Where do you see it improving? What are you doing good? What are you doing well? What has he brought? Are you progressing? Those kind of things. And I think on all those metrics, we're doing well. Yes, we've got a lot of things to iron out to be that top team that we want to be. We want to aspire to be. But at the moment, we're still at a stage where we're conceding way too many chances, too many mistakes. We've not got the right players in certain positions. And so it leads to stats like this. But I do believe once we tighten a lot of these things, we get more ingrained in Ange Ball. We get a lot of the players we want in certain positions. We can be a lot better. I really believe that. Yeah,
I agree with that. But the reality is, if these same old problems are still haunting us halfway through next season or this time next year, then serious questions will probably have to be asked.
Yeah, of course.
Next up is Cock on Ball. He's replying to TNT Sports' tweet saying Ben White was spotted trying to loosen Vicario's glove on the corner, and he says this kind of antics need to be highlighted as much as possible. They are cheats.
100%, and Vicario should be highlighting it, making sure the ref knows what's going on, and he should be making sure that he's giving back to Ben White as well. I feel like he's just letting Ben White do what he wants without giving any pushback, and that's the most frustrating thing.
And it just goes back to what Jose Mourinho said all those years ago in the Amazon documentary, doesn't it? You need to be a...
Exactly. I think we all know what he says next.
Harry Brooks says, today is another example of why it's a fair argument that so many people think Romero is the best centre-back in the world. His entire influence is immense. I think he's had 4 shots. He charged a pressing attack at least 3 times, got in the way of everything, outstanding on the ball. I think it was an immense display from Cuti Romero. And also with Cuti Romero, because Van de Ven makes those lung-busting runs and saves us so many times, I don't think Romero gets enough of the plaudits that he deserves this season.
Yeah, agreed. And as Harry Brooks says, when he says he charges the press in attack at least 3 times, those things go a lot more unnoticed. When we're winning the ball back in the centre of the pitch or even in the opposition half, that's a lot that people don't notice what Romero's doing there. But yeah, when there's a ball coming over the top and Van de Ven's running back and winning it, that's a lot of people sticks out in the mind for a lot more people, I feel. So I feel like a lot of Romero's good work does go unnoticed a lot of the time, and I think he's an astonishing centre back. And I just think if we had more help and we had better way of dealing with these transitions, his good work could be a lot more noticed.
Lily White Lab says, Dejan Kulusevski has to start the remaining of games this season. No one in our front line has anywhere near the retention that he does. He prevents the constant turnovers and dangerous transitions while also being super composed and smart in the final third. He hasn't been good as of late, but I believe his profile is key to what we need in attack. And I agree to a certain extent, but I would prefer to see him probably in the middle of the park, playing in the number 10 for the remainder of the season.
I think maybe against Chelsea, we're looking at line-up, I would think Brennan on the right, Son on the left, Rishi up top, and Decky in the centre.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But you say that because Arsenal didn't play a high line yesterday, so it was harder for Son to get in behind. You do expect Chelsea to play that high line, so maybe there is a case of keeping Son in the number 9.
There is a case for it. Yeah, there is a case for it, I would say. But it depends. The problem with that is who plays on the left.
Well, Werner's out. Maybe,
I don't really like Johnson there. That's why I'm more leaning towards just put Son there.
Yeah, good point. Football AK says, genuinely after today I'm more convinced that we will succeed, but got to be patient and take it one step at a time. Of course it's not going to be all perfect, and yeah, I completely agree. I do think we're going in the right direction, and if fans just expect things to happen overnight and to be a competitor at the top of the league after losing Harry Kane, after going through what we went through with Conte, Mourinho, Nuno, and then Ange comes in and completely flips the script, you're deluded.
Yeah,
in the wise words of Danny Kyriacou.
Yeah, and I really believe that one for a good thing. And I know it at the moment. I can understand why it's hard to see sometimes, especially right now when we keep making these same mistakes. But these are stuff. This isn't stuff that can't get rectified in the long term. Making sure you're much better from set pieces. I'm not saying easily rectified, but that's a lot easier to rectify than not being able to control games. That's a lot harder to rectify, and we've got that at the moment. Yeah. And so that's what I'm excited about.
Spurs Forever says, who are they marking? And this is a freeze frame of the corner that they scored from. I think this is the one. Is this the one where Højbjerg scored an own goal from? Or no, it might be Havertz's one. I'm not sure. But I mean, I saw this live in front of my eyes and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then as soon as the corner gets taken, or just before, all these Arsenal players rush into the box, and our defenders, or every single Spurs player we had in box, just looked shell-shocked, didn't know what to do.
They also had one cleared off the line in the second half, didn't they? I forgot about that.
With Van de Ven.
Van de Ven cleared off the line. So, yeah, I think Arsenal knew exactly how we set up. They exploited that. They have this way of just... because if they do this, then it's very, very hard to pick up, because they're running from the blind side. So you kind of have to look at 2 places at once. You have to look at when the ball's being kicked, and you have to look at when these players are running, and it causes a lot of confusion, and it's a lot easier for Arsenal to get the run on you, and that's exactly why it's so effective. So we should have known that was coming. We should have planned for it, and we didn't, and that's on Ange.
Yeah. Cuti Romero after the game says, head up and carry on. This is what it's all about sometimes. I'm more than ever with this team. We will work and finish the season in the best way. Thank you for always being fans, all together, always. And that's from Cuti Romero. Lovely message after the game.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe when reading that. Like, some people thought he's doesn't care about Tottenham and all that kind of rubbish that people throw through.
He's the most coys out of everyone.
Come on, he's fully coys, Romero. Absolutely love him.
Coco says, this is Michael Oliver every time Arsenal commit a foul. And that's exactly what it felt like yesterday. And Michael Oliver, I mean, if he took off his referee jersey, he probably had the Arsenal one on the underneath.
And also there was another thing. I think Arsenal made, where was it? Fouls. Where was that stat? Arsenal made, I can't see it now.
What, fouls?
Yeah. Arsenal made 16 fouls. We made 12. Yeah, we got 2 yellows and they got 1. Just goes to show, like...
And Arsenal made a lot more than 16 fouls.
Yeah.
A lot more.
And they could have given away a couple of penalties. The VAR situations as well were very annoying. So I thought, Michael Oliver did not have a good game, I thought, yesterday.
Yeah. Ron Hotspur says, all we ask for is consistency. And this is 24 hours apart, pretty much. These two are less than 24 hours apart, really. And this was Chelsea and Villa, the goal that was disallowed, I think it was, in the last minute of the game. And this next one was Spurs' one.
Yeah, Van der Ven. Look, he's got 2 hands on his back and he's pushing him. And that's what I'm saying. Like, the fact that it's so close... so close in date, like literally 24 hours later. Look, Bad Chile has 1 arm on him and it gets disallowed. Yeah, Havertz has 2 arms on him and they've got nothing to say for it. So it's very, very frustrating.
You know, like, I've always been of thinking this season that, you know, decisions are going to go for you, decisions are going to go against you. That's just the way it goes, right? But to have so many in one game, just like that was just too much. Like, how can you have so many in one game in such a game of this magnitude as well?
Makes it very hard to take.
Takes the piss. And Madders THFC first tweeted out saying robbed, and this is of the Kulusevski chance, the goal that they scored, the offside decision as well, which I probably thought the offside decision was right anyway. But then he quote retweets that and it says, "How does it get worse?"
Yeah, I would say about that one. So that was. So this was the. Okay, yeah, you get clipped. Yeah. How does it get worse? I do think that one was not a penalty, unfortunately, just because I think Partey does get a toe to the ball. But he's unlucky, Kulu, because he does get past Gabriel, and Gabriel brings him down. But luckily for Gabriel, Partey was able to get a touch on the ball, so it's not a foul. So very lucky.
Tom Mitch says, doesn't help when you're dealing with this level of officiating. And this freeze frame, the ball is nowhere near. Declan Rice kicks a lump out of Ben Davis. He goes down. Look at the view that Michael Oliver has. And he's like, nah, no penalty.
I couldn't quite believe it. And I remember at the time as well, the whole bench, the Spurs bench, up in arms. Like, how was that not given? And also, they didn't even have to wait for the ball to go out of play for it to go to a penalty. So... yeah, it was a clear penalty. And
I don't know if you saw Gary Neville's reaction to it live on air as well.
I was watching the highlights and he said, oh, that's a penalty. Yeah, that's a penalty.
Carly T saying absolute robbery in response to Sunbleach, saying the saddest part that now is we have to pretend we didn't just see Mickey pointing repeatedly to the badge when he scored that goal.
So annoying.
It was just a day of what could have been yesterday. That was really what it was. Rad Chohan says, don't rate this Werner Brennan winger duo for a Big Six team. All off the ball work. They do not provide enough quality when they receive the ball in wide areas. I think having both in Spurs' squad next season would be a mistake.
I mean, it's hard to disagree, to be honest, because as much as I like them both, they're both good players, but if we really want to bridge that gap, having both of them start games together, is that really going to do it?
Yeah.
It's not going to do it maybe against the lower teams, but when it comes to top 10 teams, I think it's always going to be difficult.
Yeah, when you're comparing it to maybe an Arsenal, right, let's just take their left wing as an example, Martinelli, who hasn't had a good season, but we know what he can provide. And you've got Leandro Trossard, when he's not playing well, he can step in and score 15 goals a season. Can Timo Werner do that when our left winger's not providing? Our first choice next season is not providing. I'm not sure he can.
No, I don't think he can.
So, and on that basis, then maybe we need to rethink our opinions on Timo Werner, and maybe he's just not good enough at all.
Well, look, I think in a perfect world, I'd prefer not to sign him, to be honest, but we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where...
we live in Levy's world.
Exactly. In that kind of world, I don't mind signing him as long as we're signing another one, but I'd prefer not to sign him, to be honest.
Fabrizio Romano says, Postecoglou and Romero, outstanding World Cup winners mentality. I've got to get what's in him into some of the others. And who do you think he's alluding to when he says some of the others?
Maybe the players in midfield.
I think so. The Højbjergs, the Basumas, these kind of players.
Somewhat, yeah, exactly. So they have that mentality, that aggressive mentality, rather than sometimes just letting the players coast and not get stuck in and things like that.
Talking THFC in reply to XG Philosophy saying 2.73 XG to Arsenal's 1.28, saying a few better refereeing decisions and it's totally a different story today. Absolutely it's their title to lose now. We'll be back. I mean, I don't think it's their title to lose. I think when you're looking at the league table, it's clearly Man City's title to lose.
It's in Man City's hands. If Man
Exactly.
City win all their games, there's nothing Arsenal can do.
Yeah.
So it's not Arsenal's title to lose, but I completely agree with the first bit. It was such fine margins yesterday, it really was. And that's the most frustrating thing. It really could have gone a different direction.
I'm looking at Arsenal though, and I don't think I see champions playing in front of me. And when you're looking at the champions of the last 5 or 6 years, that Liverpool team, the Man City teams, all those Man City teams, the way they're just so relentless and beat teams for fun. Yeah, Arsenal are getting results at the moment. They beat Wolves, beat Chelsea, but I'm not seeing a team that deserve to be champions, in my opinion.
Can never say Arsenal deserve to be champions.
Yeah, that's the reality as well. Jacko says the biggest negative today was Madison. When will he ever get back to his level? We're basically playing with 10 men. I'm expecting a lot more from him. We made him vice captain, and that is the effort of a North London derby. Disappointed once again. It's hard to disagree with that.
I was very disappointed with him, I have to say. I've been backing him up, and that was probably his worst display yet, and especially as he's just had 2 weeks as well to get over whatever it may be, injury problems or fitness issues he's maybe going through, and he kind of served up a really bad performance. So it's an awkward conversation now for Thursday whether he starts.
Yeah, I don't think he should. Axel THFC saying, I've seen enough from this season. I just want to know Ange Ball is going to hit like the purest crack cocaine out there next season, and I'm sure it will.
100%. It's going to be you won't be able to get enough.
Alex THFC saying all in one season, which is unacceptable really, losing at home to West Ham, Chelsea and Arsenal. But I would say we probably deserved more out of all 3 of those games.
Yeah, it definitely should not be 3 losses. Obviously Chelsea were down to 9 men and 1 up. West Ham, we completely dominated that game, and then we made 2 individual errors, didn't we, and cost us. And obviously the Arsenal game was very, very fine margin. So I don't come away looking at those results thinking we deserve to win all of those. But when you lose all 3 of them, it's very, very frustrating.
Yeah. Ron Hotspur, Michael Oliver, when it's time to rob Tottenham. This is what it felt like yesterday.
Of course he did. When it's time to level the playing field in the title race, then he comes charging in. Oh, so frustrating.
Harry Brooks says, I haven't looked into Spurs' defensive set-piece organisation, but Romero, Richarlison, Udogie a bit are the only players in the team who truly attack aerially. You can't have the best set-piece coach in the world. You can have the best set-piece coach in the world if you don't have players who can attack the ball. You're struggling. And I agree with that. I mean, we need players. We need better players in the air in our team. We just don't have enough.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think Basuma doesn't really do it. Bentancur, I think he has done it, but maybe at the moment he's not doing it in terms of just really challenging strongly in the air. Porro's never been the best in the air. Van de Ven, for a 6'4" defender, is not the best in the air. I think it makes a good. Son is not the best in the air. Johnson's 6 foot, but does he get put his head in there? Werner. So maybe it is a case of at the moment we're struggling with set pieces because a lot of our defenders are, or a lot of our players are just not physically that aggressive.
Yeah. Mikkel Moritzen says Tomiyasu clears the ball into his own player. How can it be offside? Can someone explain?
Yeah,
and that's what I'm talking about. It's like he has control of the ball. He tries to clear it and he clears it into an Arsenal player. Yeah,
but it's a debate whether if you clear it like that, are you in control, or is it? Because if he passes
that's what he means to do. He means to clear it up the pitch.
Yeah, I guess it's a subjective decision. You could argue he has control of the ball because he could have passed it. He could have, but then some people say if it's just a block, he's just trying to get in front of it. It's not he doesn't have control of the ball. So you can make a case for both, to be honest. But they fell on the fact that he doesn't have control. They say.
Of course they did. Chris Miller says, want a hot take? I wouldn't start Son or Madison against Chelsea. I mean, I agree with Madison, but I don't really agree with Son. I think Son should be starting against Chelsea, especially as Timo Werner's injured.
Yeah, if Timo's going to be out, I don't think we have a choice, really. Son has to start on the left. Obviously, I don't think he had a great game, to be fair, against Arsenal. I don't think that was totally his fault again, but I don't think he had a great game. But if he's... I don't want to see Johnson on the left.
Yeah, but I do think as well, if you put better creativity behind Son, you'll see a much better human Son.
Yeah,
I think that's just simple facts.
I agree with that as well.
Hotspur related, and on Tottenham today, we let the fans down.
Yeah, I think obviously that the emotions are raw after the defeat. But when you're 3-0 down, I think they were definitely in danger of it being an embarrassment, that's for sure. So at least that didn't happen.
Mickey van der Ven stopped that single-handedly, pretty much. And John Kulusevski's penalty appeal, he says, games are not refereed in the stadium anymore. They are refereed somewhere else, and no one will convince me otherwise. It's not even re-refereed. It's refereed somewhere else. That's why I don't celebrate goals anymore. I wait for somebody down the road. The refs just go, you know what? I'll wait and see what the bloke down the road thinks. Yeah,
and that is also a big problem with VAR. Obviously, we know that. It's very frustrating. It's kind of like, I think when it gets to stages like it was against Villa, that is re-refereeing the game, because the referee was right in front of it. It's a very tight call. Yeah, yes, maybe it is a foul, but is it clear and obvious? No, and that goes to re-refereeing the game. But then when you look at the Ben Davies one, that's obviously a clear and obvious error. I don't think anyone would argue that's not a penalty. Very clear. I don't know how the referee missed that. That was like a shocker. The one against Villa Chelsea, that wasn't a shocker. That's could have gone either way. It was a bit weak from the Villa defender, but also was a bit of a shot from the Chelsea one. There's arguments both sides. So that goes down to re-refereeing the game, I think, in those situations, and it's very frustrating.
It is very frustrating, especially when you've got that kind of level of officiating, especially on the pitch. THFC Josh says, Ange has coached a win here. Romero going close with 2 headers. VDV goal ruled out by the closest of offsides of all time. No pen given on Kulusevski. 2 sloppy displays of marking from corners. Son missed a sitter. A stupid own goal. We deserved 3 points.
I wouldn't go as far as say we deserved it, because we kind of only have ourselves to blame.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say we deserve. I would say we were the better team, and I would say we could have won that game easily. But I wouldn't go as far as say we deserved the win, because when you're 3-0 down at half time because of your own mistakes that you should have seen coming, you can't really have anyone to blame but yourselves.
Your own mistakes and your own naivety as well.
Think there's a difference between deserving to win and being the better team.
Yeah, I agree with that. Fans against VAR say that the offside law was never established to disallow goals for this gross misinterpretation of the law.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I just see so many goals now, and I'm not even just saying this just because of this goal. I've seen so many this season, which is like a hairline offside. I mean, that is not what the law was brought in for.
And also, if I looked at the line, I'm pretty sure they drew it at, I don't know who it is, at Saliba or Gabriel, but I'm pretty sure they drew it at his foot, where you can see his backside is a bit further out, and I don't think they drew it there when that's his furthest point. So I know it's very even that might maybe Van der Ven's ahead of it, but very, very frustrating how that goes against you. But that is the reality of offsides and VAR.
Yeah.
But this is look at that image. That's what they're drawing to. You know what I mean? It's a guessing game at this point where the last point is. You know, it's like you're making millimeter decisions on that kind of image. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Postecoglou on Romero, which we've covered, and last but not least is the Spurs Watch saying these players gave everything today, and that was Kulusevski, Richarlison, Mickey van der Ven, and Kuti Romero. I thought, Richarlison was great just because of the energy and maybe the aggressive nature that he brought to the game, but the other 3 players were actually quality.
Yeah, agreed.
But that is it from us today. That is your dissection of the 3-2 defeat at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Onwards and upwards for Tottenham Hotspur. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.